Welcome everyone to the FATED ARPG podcast with Balor and Kat. I changed that up a little bit because I've freestyled it. Who knows? We're excited today, and I'm sure Balor is going to tell you all about it. Let's go. How are you doing, Balor?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Might have been playing Diablo 3.
Oh, how come?
Last season. Fun.
Oh, okay. Member berries. We have guests today, right?
Oh, yeah.
I heard you're a little bit fanboy.
Let's not say that in front of them. That feels weird.
All right. Let's welcome the one and only Tyler and Tagz from the Forever Exiled Podcast. This is the first time I'll pull both guests onto the stage at the same time because I legit don't know who to pull first. So let's go.
Hi. Thanks for
Welcome,
having us.
guys. Thanks for joining. This has been a long time coming, and we have so much to talk about. How have you been?
Great.
Been playing a lot of Path of Exile this past week?
Reasonable. I probably played a little bit more than Justin. But yeah, definitely. Standard's the best. Who can argue with
I
standard?
did play though. I did. Because I knew we were coming on, so I was like, I gotta make sure I have something I can say.
First time he's played in 2 weeks just because he's coming on your show.
Yeah, I can't sound stupid.
Sorry, I forgot to put on my slippers, but keep going.
The level of commitment, unbelievable.
Like I said before, I spent all day yesterday and all day today playing Diablo 3.
I did see you for a little bit playing Diablo. I was
which is
watching
better than Diablo 4 currently. So
wait, is
Did you
there
say last season?
Yeah, are they done?
last season there'll ever be new content. So they're gonna keep doing season ladder resets, and they're gonna do balance passes, but they're just gonna like replay old seasons that were good with a full ladder reset and a balance pass. But no more new content. This league's new content is it forever.
When they do their
kept Path of Exile 1.
when they do their seasons, do they add new items and stuff? Like I can't remember. I did play, but it's been a long time.
Not usually items like uniques and stuff.
Okay.
They usually sometimes they'll rebalance whole sets, which will like change the way things will play. And usually new things like new things to interact with, or new entire item classes that would like add something to items, but they don't usually like add uniques or anything like that.
Do the seasons do anything to change like the end game, or is it still just the rifts and the greater rifts and the
yeah, by their standards, but not by our standards.
Sure, okay.
Realistically, I've played D3 for a long time. I play between 2 and 5 days every season. Now, those are degenerate streamer days, so they're still pretty long.
Sure. Yep.
But it'll last between 2 and 5 days, and then you get bored and leave, which is... people shit on it a lot because of that, because they're like, you only get to play for a few days. But I'm like, isn't that... Like, I had a lot of fun for 3 days. And then I just moved on, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it makes
like
sense.
I'll come back in 3 months' time when they do it again. I'll have another 3 days of fun. Like I'm not locked there. I don't have to keep playing.
Right.
Yeah, no, people are stupid. You don't listen to people.
So what will you do now though if this is the last one? You won't do
We'll see. We'll see.
Just
I might
2 days
try.
instead of 5.
Yeah, like it might just end up being less days, or maybe I skip seasons when they're seasons that don't really appeal to me. And just be like, whatever. But like it was only ever taking a few days of my time every 3 months.
Right. Did you guys play Diablo 2?
Yeah. Super heavily.
Back in the day.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't have internet, right? So I digged around on my local computer and did a little hex editing and cheated myself the item sets that I wanted and all that. I didn't really understand the value of accomplishing anything in the game myself.
Did you ever do like a LAN one, like where you just had somebody else locally? I remember doing that, going to a buddy's house, and we would hook up 2 computers and just play locally.
We used to book out little halls that were cheap and have like 50 to 80 people, like teenagers, show up with their entire PCs.
Yeah.
And just like hook in and bring tons of like chips and lollies and stuff. And we just hook up like a 50 to 80 person LAN party for the weekend. Nerds.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Awesome.
Except for the explosion that would probably happen every now and then.
Yeah, that would be fun.
All this like plugging in, plugging up.
It was pretty
Blowing
good
up a
though.
few-
That's sweet.
Cool.
There were more than one blown fuse,
Mhm.
but it's fine. It's just part of the deal, really.
That's awesome.
I love
Yeah.
the journey of CEO of not picking things up, and you have this pristine chosen background.
It's always clean.
It's
Irony
it's
of
good. That's because the best way to get rich in PoE is by not picking shit up off the ground.
Yeah,
there it is.
Which is
true.
a weird sentence, but it's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I crafted a belt the other day and sold it for 9 divine after I invested like just a handful of essences into it. I just, picked up because I invested into Abyss on the tree, right? Just picked it up from my map and I had a bunch of belt bases in my inventory. I was just like, might as well throw something on them instead of letting them rot. And I actually hit a belt with tier 1 weapon elemental damage and pretty decent life, and it had an open prefix, and then chat bullied me into slamming it, and I actually hit tier 2 hunter life and sold it for 9 divine.
No.
And what are you doing with the divines?
Investing them into my bottomless pit of a build.
What's the build?
Add them to the pile.
It's a Reap Fire Conversion Juggernaut. And at first, the concept sounds like, okay, you're not going with a really offensive ascendancy, right? You're cutting back a little bit on the clear to make a really beefy build. But in the end, the realistic way that the build shapes out, it's neither very tanky nor does it do a lot of damage. It just
The best.
it does feel good to play.
Oh, I could
That
talk
helps.
to you for hours about mediocre builds. I love them. They're the best.
He's a pro.
I mean,
Nailed
it's
it.
what
That's
you end
awesome.
up with for the most part in Path of Exile if you play a lot of different builds, right? Like most of them aren't very exceptional.
How'd you get the jug to not be tanky?
I don't know. It's just
Actually,
nowadays
though.
endurance charges don't cut it anymore, dude. It's just I can't get spell suppression, and that alone is enough to get randomly one shot here and there.
No,
There's
it's
so
just
much tankiness built in.
how
Though.
do you guys normally play? Do you do like hardcore? Do you do what's it called? Ruthless? What do you guys standard on console? Yeah?
Oh,
Anybody?
no.
Yeah. All right, fine, whatever. Anyway, how do you
I
guys
was-
normally
I
play?
think Balor and I met in hardcore and then like went to
Hmm.
softcore for different reasons and at different times.
Was that hardcore like when did you guys start playing? How long have you been playing? Like, are we talking back to betas or like?
I don't remember the year, but Bloodlines.
Yeah, 2014, end of
first-
2014.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bloodlines
Patch
was the first season I
1.4.
started. So,
So
I'd played like a spottily just before that.
Mm-hmm.
And then knew there was a reset coming up. Didn't really know much more, but that was the season that I like started on it. And I started in hardcore trade and played 15,000 hours in hardcore trade before moving to softcore.
Holy shit! Okay? So did you go hardcore because that just was what you wanted? Like around that time, it was
That
still.
was the only place.
I think. Well, the mentality was very like, what did they call it? Scrub core. Back. I remember when I started playing. Yeah.
Play hardcore or you're not playing, basically.
Yeah, or people make fun of you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think I did more than like 4 maps my first season. It was a lot of leveling. Just a lot of leveling and dying and leveling and dying and leveling and dying, and then enter like a master rota to try and level my masters and die while I was doing it and start again. And it was pain. There was a lot of pain involved.
So what was your reason for switching both of you to softcore then? Was it just
Now, first, you guys tell us what was your entry point into Path of Exile?
I started in closed beta, and it was just an introduction from a buddy I used to play Minecraft actually with. Like years ago, we ran a big Minecraft server, and he mentioned it. I don't remember how it came up, but we started playing closed beta, and yeah, that was I've played since I think 2012 is when my account was started. So yeah, that was my entry. I did play hardcore, but it was forced. I hated it, and it didn't last. I was in that scrub core for sure, and I didn't care. I was fine with it. Fine with it.
I bowed to peer pressure easier.
Yeah, I did not, because I valued my happiness and my anger and my just well-being, so I was fine with it.
I was
What
a
about
couple
you,
years
Tyler?
later. Justin, wait, hang on. Which way's am I? I'm
Nope.
pointing that way, right? No, hang on. I want to. Justin's bottom left for all of you, right?
I can switch you guys. Easy.
Oh
no,
no, what
no,
happened?
I got it.
It's
Because
easy.
hang on.
Now Tyler's there. Got it.
See, no, okay, you gotta switch us back now. Because yeah,
No, you're fine.
'cause
That's correct.
that's the same direction that I'm going. My bookshelf is right there.
On my screen, that's
Okay.
correct.
Hi, Just. So he got me into the game. I don't remember how or why. I wasn't looking for a specific game. I was like, that guy was. I was looking for a specific build, and I wanted a game that would suit the build I was playing. And I couldn't find anything like that. And so we're going through, and Justin's like, "Oh, well, try Path of Exile." And I'm going through, and like at that stage of gaming in my life, it was kind of like 10 hours in. I'm like, I'm not finding the build. Like, you're looking for like, I'm not used to games where you'd play thousands of hours, except for maybe Armada on the Dreamcast. That was wicked. But I had never, 10 hours into a game, you're almost finished the game per se. So I put a bunch of time in. I couldn't really find a way to like, which skill can I use? And I was trying like just frenzy or the default attack to try to get my character to be the one that I was dreaming of when I was like, hey, I gotta try all these games to get this build. Didn't work out. We tried Torchlight, a few other things, and then maybe a year and a half after that, I all of a sudden Path of Exile was everything I was looking for, and never played
But you
anything
had tried
after.
it. I tried.
I did, and
play
yeah,
it.
that was so that
Right.
like 10-hour experience. I tried it. That's when my account says it's been created, but it was about a year after that when I really started getting into it. So
That's interesting. A lot of people, like including myself, have that they didn't get into PoE on one specific occasion, but it was been
Mhm.
like, you dive in, you
come
go
back.
take a step away, you dive in again, and at some point
Yeah.
it hooks you.
Mhm.
Yeah. For me, it was kind of, I was looking for a specific build. PoE with what I thought PoE wasn't providing me with what I didn't know the extent of the theory crafting at the time. I was still pretty like, my RPG experience was just pretty much action oriented, and you could make some choices and then you felt really epic about it. But then it came to the point where all of a sudden that kind of like, but you could do this, but you could do this. And Justin's like, yeah, but you can also do that with this game. And so all of a sudden those seeds start sticking. And then it's like all of a sudden a game like Diablo feels crazy simple and boring because you don't really have, you feel like you have to play each character one of three ways. And so when you're looking for something a little bit beyond that, you're also a console family. Right, like it was my wife that got me into RPGs when she introduced me to Fallout 3 back in the day. Before that, it was like all Splinter Cell, Hitman, like FIFA,
Stupid
Madden,
sports.
sports, all that kind of stuff. And like I would love, I don't know if you guys ever played Splinter Cell, but like Justin, you remember when we'd play like Chaos Theory on the original Xbox? We would seriously wait. It'd be like the knives only mode, no pistols, no nothing. We would wait in a corridor doing the splits, like, because sweet game mode, right? You could jump up the corridor and you'd be doing the split so the guards would walk under you, and obviously they wouldn't see you. And I would wait like half an hour for that perfect opportunity of the guard walking around, and then I'd finally jump down, totally screw it up, but it felt so good to like not be seen for half an hour. Anyway, that's how I got
wonder,
into
can
PoE.
you do that in real life? Like do the splits for like half an hour
No.
and then jump
I
down
can.
without like having your
Absolutely.
leg like completely falling asleep or something like
You
that?
betcha, all the time. That's just what I do.
Could any of us? No. Could it be done theoretically?
Somebody,
True.
sure.
Sure, absolutely.
No,
It's got to be somebody.
after dropping the kids off at school, I'm doing cartwheels all the way home. That's just what I do.
Well, okay. So, but why did you guys switch to softcore? If you were like Kat, when did you get into it? Sorry, I don't remember if you said.
I first made my account after I saw the game on Wings of Death stream, who was a League of Legends streamer, or still is a League of Legends streamer.
Oh, that's a person? I thought it was a cool game.
Wings
Yeah,
of
I
Death.
Wicked name.
Was
I didn't know what that
Wings
was
of-
either. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Wings of Death is like one of the OG
Pretty epic.
Twitch streamers. Like he still
Okay.
streams with a headset because he doesn't want to, change his stream experience to like a high quality mic or something like that. He still has that headset sound, and he looks exactly the same like back then. Maybe a little bit more beard and a little bit more muscle. But anyway,
Nice.
what I'm trying to say is
Muscle got longer they've lived. They got more muscle. Not good for them.
he does actually work out. I believe.
I just
recently.
get fatter.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's a skill.
No, he's like one of those guys like Mathel who posts like topless stuff
those
on
guys.
Twitter.
Sexy and stuff. Hate them.
Gross.
But yeah, anyway, I made my account.
Dark Wings.
Darkwing Duck. Oh yeah, that was a good. Anyway, no, Wings of Death. Yeah, it made my account, but then didn't play, and like always put it on the shelves. I was like, one day I'll check it out, right? Because I was a Diablo 2 fan, but I never got into it. And then friends of mine were like, hey, let's do a playthrough together. And then end of 2014, I think, during the Sacrifice of the Val expansion, we played into endgame once. People dared me, were like, because I said, I might want to do hardcore in the future at some point. People were like, oh, you're not even going to last to level 50. And I don't know, that's not how my personality works. I just made a level 50 character in hardcore. Like, exactly. Made a Scion. And directly after I hit level 50, walked into a Val side area with the freeze trap Mervil clone, right? Like the siren who throws the what was it? Frost pulse trap? Freeze pulse traps?
She's a prick.
Oh my god, I got killed so fast. Like I instantly died at level 50, but I made it to level 50. And then like my ventures into hardcore became longer and longer. I still played softcore on the side with my friends, but I like started on every league start and made more and more characters, and just hardcore seemed like the way to play at the time because I had a lot of time on my hands. The game was a lot smaller than it is now, so it felt like you're doing the reasonable thing, which is spreading the game out over a longer period of time, right? Keeping it fresh for longer because it's harder to reach the highest content. And then eventually I followed Balor. Well, maybe now, Balor, you tell people why you switched to softcore after your 15,000 hardcore hours.
Mine's
is
kind of
15,000. Is that sarcastic or are you serious?
No, 15,000
he's serious.
in hardcore. 26, maybe 27,000 now.
Wow. God damn. Okay. So why the switch then?
Mostly content. Many times in a row, I was making a build people were interested in. It died before I got it where it needed to go. And I would level it again and die again and then level it a third time. And then it'd be 4 weeks later before I'd finish the build to a state where I was like, I can share this as a build guide. This is the way people should do it. And then it'd taken me a month for what would have taken me 5 days. And it just became like, I could make more better content if I went to softcore.
I wish people did that more often, though. Like, I wish that there was a little bit of accepted patience in the community. I used to do guide writing as well, and there's such a pressure to get your guide out before league launch. And this was before, I mean, the pressure's still there, of course, but now we have, you know, that Twitch presentation that's a week earlier, patch notes are a few days. Like, you used to have all that content show up like 3 days before the league actually launched. And then you'd have to put together your videos, and the horrible way that the website has its whole design of how you try and implement and leak. Like, it's so old school. But I just wish, like, you know, you get those people like, oh, 36 billion Uber Shaper DPS, and it's like 6 weeks before the patch notes even come out. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of wish that there was this patience, like people knew that just legit builds for the league wouldn't come out until a week or two after league launch, and there was a little bit more acceptance into just winging it for the first 2 weeks, and then once the second week starts, if you're someone that needs a build or wants a build, then you'd know that the legit ones are out.
I actually actively tell people, if you find a creator saying, this is my build guide before there are patch notes, you should just
Ignore that.
Just turn them off. This is of no use to you. Until you can do all the
until
research
these
in the
patch
world
notes, which
yeah, you can do all the research beforehand in the world you want, and I do, and I'll prepare a bunch of stuff for after patch notes, but I'm not releasing anything until I get the full patch notes, because they have, and they will again in the future, just annihilate something in just, it'll just be one note, and it'll just be like, whole build's gone, bye. Like, you can't release them beforehand.
My chief was so safe for years. It was safe. Like the old school chieftain, and then see how what I said there, Just?
I got it.
Chieftain. I said chieftain.
Chieftain
Chieftain is spelt so stupid. I always pronounce it wrong. But anyway, with the chief, and that's why I say chief, like, I was all ready. I was like, they'll be ready to go, no problem. A whole ascendancy, but like the theme of the ascendancy just melted away. It's a totally different theme now. It's crazy.
So deleted chieftain and invented a new character. Is what happened.
in a way, like it still has the fire aspect to it, but so many of the other themes were just gone. Like life regen was gone. At least totems are still there, but
Were you both?
and then hilariously, on a complete side note, like to me, one of the sexiest nodes it has was where any single totem the chief casts taunts. How cool is that? That's such a hardcore keystone. Like you're not the chief and not doing that, and then doing the 2 resist keystones as well. If you're doing hardcore, like that's just amazing. That anything that you throw out there taunts, and then they come out with a league mechanic and they delete taunt a week into it. That's so crazy. So anyway, they completely killed my build, which I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I hate the patch notes, you killed my build. But I hate it when
a little bit.
Now, I was disappointed they killed my build, but I totally get where they're coming from. I'm pointing the GGG over there, and yeah, they're probably that way.
On my screen, you're pointing to me.
Probably that way.
It's confusing.
No.
Most likely.
I'm
That's
pointing
me.
to you on my screen. No,
I think it's showing you a mirrored version of your camera. I don't know why.
It's fine. You just point away, Ty. Do your
no,
thing.
I'm changing it again. I'm changing it. Okay, now where am I pointing?
Away from me.
Outside of the screen. You're pointing to New Zealand right now.
Wait,
From here, it looks like you're pointing to New Zealand.
now where am I pointing?
Still the same thing. You're not getting any better, my friend.
So it only mirrors it for me?
I don't know. I don't even know what you're clicking on, to be honest. I have a question though. You guys
There's
both
a thing in the settings. It says mirror
move-
and then not mirror.
you were talking about moving from hardcore to softcore, and then you said
I hate
because
all
of
of
like
you.
the content side of it. Because you guys both stream, you both do YouTube. Do you
little
get
bit.
more content out of doing this? Like, I always thought people that stream did hardcore because there's that opportunity for more. Like, you just always have
Oh.
something new going on.
No.
Different types of content.
Good players stream hardcore because it's better.
I've never
If
actually
you-
watched too
if
many,
you
so I wasn't
die
sure.
all the
But
time,
I thought that
it's
was
not as
fun.
good.
For people to watch. I never understood from the streamer's perspective because I'd be angry. But I've
So
always
I don't
been
mind dying. I never get angry. And chat loves to watch the streamer die.
sure, right?
But it's
Amen. Yeah.
it's 1 to 10 minutes worth of making fun of them and enjoying that.
Right.
And then realistically,
Watch all the
they
leveling.
leave for the next day and a half and wait for you
Right.
to get leveled again. So
Oh,
it's as
that
much
makes
as
sense.
it's fun to watch the streamer die, you get this like little section
Blip.
of hype that everybody loves, and then they
Mhm.
just like there's now
okay.
going to be basically no content until you're
Right.
back up to like 80 plus and in proper maps again. So
Right. Okay,
it
that
sounds
makes sense.
good,
Mm-hmm.
but then it isn't.
It depends also if you're like a very entertaining personality, or like, you know, in a certain way your reactions to the stuff that happens in the game are super engaging. Then yeah, there's also the benefit, obviously, when you play hardcore and then someone turns it into highlight clips, into a highlight reel. It's a little bit more entertaining if there's the death of your character on the line permanently, right, all the time. Like
Yeah.
any time you could lose it. But then at the same time, I think at the time Balor and I both were playing hardcore, we weren't able to afford an editor who would like edit highlight reels for us or something like that, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, we needed like proper content, and I think build guides are better, and like game guides, but you can't figure out those game things if you die all the time and you have to re-level every 3 days.
Is that why you switched to the softcore side then as well? Same sort of reason, or?
I got jealous of what Balor was doing. I saw Balor transition to softcore, and I saw him become better and more successful at content and the game. And I was like, well, damn. At the same time, I was experiencing some frustration with hardcore because I kind of grew out of the hardcore mindset. I don't know. I grew risk averse. That's one thing. Like that I noticed really big time is that whenever I do content in hardcore, like the new content like Exarch and Eater or like Uber bosses or something like that, I always notice that either I do it too early and I just die, right? And I feel like shit, now I wasted my time making a character, or I do it too late and it's a pushover and I'm like, shit, I wasted my time by not doing it early. And I never ever had the feeling that I went in at the right time where I'm like, yeah, this was a good mix of risk and reward, right? It's always either a pushover or it's deleting my character, right? And that got really to me. And then at the same time, I built my own community. I have a guild now, and people were pushing for me to play a league of softcore with them. So I think for Sentinel, or maybe a league before that, but I don't remember. But for
Sentinel's the
Sentinel, I caved. I was like, okay, I'll just play all the time with the guild. I'll make a softcore character and I'll try to max it out through the league. And what should I say? It's a lot of fun to interact with other people instead of doing your HC SSF solo thing. And like the biggest reason for me now is just there's one league launch in Trade League, and if I want to play HC SSF, I can do that any day of the year, right? But there's only like 4 league launches per year. If GGG doesn't make 5, the 3 only.
Yeah, the only time we really touch HC SSF is in our private league each league, and it's awful.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It's awful.
It's stupid.
We do it because
people that like hardcore are stupid.
Yeah, people like it, and it's funny to watch us die or see the numbers of how many times we've died or whatever. But I dread it every league.
So this might, I don't know if this counts. This might be a hot take. I think playing softcore can potentially make you far better as a player if you're someone who's very used to hardcore.
Oh, that's funny. I was going to say the complete opposite. I was going to say the complete opposite.
That you think you'd be better in hardcore, Ty?
No. Playing hardcore, like building characters around a hardcore mentality is good. The more you play softcore, the more corners you cut when you're doing your theory crafting and your tooltips and your path of building. I can get away with like taking away these defensive nodes and going for a little more offense. Like softcore is dangerous, right? And then when you get used to that mentality and it's like, it's stupid, and you forget you're like, re-leveling your gems or something. But then when you're hardcore, you don't forget that stuff.
Yeah, when you're hardcore,
I mean, if you're used to hardcore, I die no matter what. But
it's hard to learn
your eyes and cross your T's and all that, and then in softcore, even not just on a build making level, but on a moment to moment decision making level in the map, you get really like lax with yourself, and you give up your strict rules, and you're like, oh, should I lock myself into another animation to get another round of damage out before I try and walk around this boss so I don't get hit by his next AoE attack or something like that? And you'll always go for the more damage output because you don't get punished anymore.
So it's a different set of skills though. So
yes, I wanted to hear what you had to say. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, when I was in hardcore, there are just things I wouldn't try. I would always take the safe option. I'm always going to move first and do damage later. And when I was playing hard, like I killed Uber Elder, the league Uber Elder came out in hardcore. But the character I killed it with was twice as geared and twice as tanky as it needed to be. And it did 50% more damage than it needed. But I was overly worried and overly concerned, so I well overgeared the content to do it. And then it became quite easy. Also, I was copying a build that was overpowered for it as well, which, fine. You're in hardcore, you should. That's fine. But like, now that I'm in softcore, I'm far, far more aware of exactly how much I can take and exactly how long I can wait to move, because I've waited too long several times and gotten one shot, and now I know that window way tighter than I ever used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely teaches a lot more in that regards for sure.
Yeah, there are bits that if you've played softcore forever, you'll get better if you move to hardcore. There are like bits you'll adjust to. But it also works the other way, which is the weird part for me, the bit that isn't intuitive, is if you've been playing hardcore forever and you go spend a while on softcore, you'll get better. Because you get to experience things you wouldn't normally even risk.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly one of the aspects I wanted to get at. You guys both play softcore trade in the league? Because you said earlier something like standard. You don't. Do you play the permanent league, or you make a character in the temporary league every time it comes out, right?
Where's Justin? Is this
that way? Other way, Ty. There you go. Yep. There you go. You got it.
Ask him first.
I do. Every league I play, I play a lot when the leagues come out, and Tyler and I typically play. I don't play standard. I don't even log into standard. That stash tab makes me ill. Just to look at opening the stash tab in standard makes me gross. But I do play the temporary league every single time. Depends on how much I'm enjoying it. Depends on how many characters I'll make. I was just going to say, with regards to what Baylor was saying, I think playing softcore gives you a better opportunity to learn the game. than hardcore does. I think hardcore is very fun for that, like stressed out, trying to over defense, over damage, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure you learn a lot when you die, because there's no opportunity to go back and figure out like, what did I miss? What was the move from that boss? I mean, I guess you do sort of learn, but you've learned one sort of part versus, running through that with 6 portals, and maybe you're getting killed every single time, but at least you maybe are learning a little bit more. Hardcore,
Yeah, you can
for
learn
me,
it back and within 5 minutes instead of 12 hours or 40
I
hours,
don't
whatever
have
it
that
is.
patience. I know for sure if I die, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to play
Yeah,
something else.
so
Yeah, that's it.
Age of Empires.
That's right. Give me anything else.
Okay. I love Age of Empires.
Amazing. Love it.
So good.
They're coming out with a new faction again. Empire. Again.
Are they?
Poop. Yeah, I
Ooh.
don't want to clickety clack because we
No,
can't
don't
ta-
clickety-clack,
on our
but-
show, because we're audio only and we get interrupted and stuff. I can be like,
I'm always
hang on,
like,
just let
oh,
me check,
32
and I'm like,
minutes. Tyler being an
I'll
idiot.
type away,
So I
and
can
then
fix it. Mhm.
we can. Yeah. Anyway, so I won't. do
Age
that
of
anymore.
Empires
Yeah.
is so good. Do you play it, Baylor?
Not really anymore. I don't get time to play anything that isn't. If I'm playing a video game, it's streamed.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
And if I
that's a tough
stream
one to
something
stream.
too far away from ARPG
Right.
space, then I
Yeah.
don't make any money.
I get it. Yeah, yeah.
And then I can't pay bills, and that
Yep.
becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The crazy thing, and I'll still answer your question, Catmaster. You'll have to remind me what it is because I don't remember anything. But the cool thing that I love about RTSs is they are so much like an ARPG with theory crafting. It's so much like that until you find a map that you always cheese and do the same way. Like when you find one of those cheesy things, like in Battle for Middle Earth 2, you do that one Lothlorien one where you're on the high one, they're on the low one. Oh, great RTS. But when you are doing an RTS, it's so similar to the theory crafting aspect, that same mentality, because there's just so many different ways you can go about beating this certain difficulty on a certain map, and you try a different faction, empire, whatever game you're playing, and do it again. It's the same mentality.
Have you played
tell
AoE
your fans
4?
to stick it, Baylor.
Baylor, have you played AoE 4?
Maybe.
Oh, we need to add you on Steam, and you can come play it with
too,
Tyler
Kat.
and I, and you'll watch what happens with Tyler when he talks about his idea of like, theory crafting. It's fucking awful because he's like, I don't have guys. This is what you hear Tyler say all the time. I don't have guys. I don't have guys. I don't have guys.
They're
We get
coming.
attacked, and he's
I
like,
just
I'm working
have a
on it, but I got
slow
banks. I'm building
process.
banks.
I will
I'm
be
building
strong at the
farms.
end.
Right. I haven't played any Age of Empires since like Age of Empires 2.
Perfect.
But what
Even
I'm
me, we
looking
can walk you
forward
through it.
to, now that we're talking about other games, especially RTS, is next month comes out Cities Skylines 2. And it looks
Number
amazing.
2. Those
Oh,
are
really?
amazing games.
I tried the first one. I couldn't get into it.
Oh, it's
I-
so good.
Lame.
I also wasn't.
I
I
tried.
don't know. Something about it isn't.
It's too Simsy for me.
Yeah, I'm just not excited about it. Like,
Yeah, it's really easy to get lost in detail and to spend like 3 or 4 hours trying to solve one specific traffic problem at like one main intersection of your city. It's such a rabbit hole. I mean, I'm not sure I'm gonna play it a lot on stream or something like that, or even play it a lot. Like I think in the first City Skylines I also only have like 100 hours or something like that. But just, starting a city and trying to get it as far as possible before something collapses, always great fun.
Do you play with all the like shit that can happen, like meteors falling and earthquakes? You turn
Yeah,
that.
probably,
Oh, no way.
probably.
Mm.
Oh, that's hardcore, though.
Yeah, that is hardcore.
weird
That's-
But
hardcore
that's the
mentality,
fun
like I
part.
play
Is like you
hardcore
never
Path
know
of
what
Exile.
happens next, like what kind of problem you run into. That's
Asteroids are off-screen damage. It's not cool.
yeah, there's no telegraphing for that shit.
off-screen damage is rude in every game.
It is. So in Path of Exile 2, they're adding gravity, and in SimCity Skylines, not SimCity, in Skylines 2, the asteroid, you get the space view, so you can't see it. That would be nice.
Yeah, we'll see.
What was your question? though?
Hi, you play
That I
standard. That was the
interrupted?
question. He
Yeah,
does
my
play
original question was
standard.
like, do you make like a character in Temp League every league? Because I was building up.
Only for him. No, him.
There
Are you
go,
guys
got it.
screwing with me? Like, he
No, you're
is
fine.
over here, isn't he?
No, he's
Did
not.
you guys like all have a secret chat?
Yeah,
And
it's
you're
in
like,
the private
no,
chat.
you
You
need to
just
move
missed
over
it.
there. So I'm always going to be pointing off into
Yeah,
space.
there's a
Justin's
setting
amusing
here
me.
in the StreamYard thing where I can mirror the camera for everyone else but for me. But it's actually not mirrored. So it's just to mess with the people. No,
That's
it's
the right
not.
way, Ty. You got it.
I
Go
can't
on.
Anyway,
imagine
so my
anything Justin
question
said. So
was where
I-
you play, because you guys asked us what when we changed into softcore to stay engaged with the game while we changed into softcore. So my question would have been like, how did you originally get into the game? Like, what was your traditional way of playing? Do you still play that way, or did you make any changes to the way that you engage with the game after all these years to, you know, to still be invigorated?
He's always played the same way. He's motivated by League content. He comes in, sometimes he likes it, sometimes he doesn't, but he's always enjoyed the core game. You're welcome for answering for you, Justin, no problem. And
Well done.
for me, I like the co-op aspect. Honestly, over like the 7 years we've been playing together, I think we actually only do the first
Like
2
4
acts
times.
together. And
Yeah.
then he's gone, or he gets a business call and I'm like in act 4, and then we don't play together ever. And then by the time I'm finished and I go to make dinner or the kids are in bed or something, he's in like level 91. He's gone. He typed in his cheat codes. He's flying. So, and then we just barely get to play together, but it's still fun. We like the co-op experience. So at the beginning of the league, I play on PC with him, and I'll just play with that character until he burns out. Sometimes, like I said, you know, because of the league content, it's a week. Sometimes he'll last the whole month. And then after that, though, my standard general term is I play standard on console. I'm not into, what do they call them? Legendary. What's like old school, like old mods and stuff like that. Old uniques that don't exist.
Legacy.
What do they call that?
Oh, the
Legacy.
legacy stuff.
Yeah, legacy. I don't do that. Like anytime something changes, I always make sure that it's up to date. And it's not about, it's just I don't put the time in. Like I'll play maybe once or twice a week. And Path of Exile 1's still very flashy. Like I used to play Diablo 3 in my old place, and I would use that to fall asleep. You know what I mean? I'd be like, okay, I'm not really tired. I got to turn on a map for Diablo, and Diablo 3 would put me to sleep. I'd fall asleep with the controller in my hand. My wife would turn off the TV, put the controller down, and I'd be snoring away. And Path of Exile 1's kind of like that as well, because it's just so much screen clutter. You can't see anything. It's just all of it's happening at once kind of thing. And so I get very tired.
Keep in mind, that's his head stuff. That's why.
Yeah, I have concussion problems too, right? So like it's a little, quite a lot
Okay.
amplified, but I'll play and I'll get pretty tired. I can play maybe like 3 hours before I'm like beat. And like, I'll get halfway past 91. Like I'll be at 91 and a half. But if I play past like 10, 15, say goodbye to that half. It's gone. I'm going right down to the bottom of 91 again, right? I'm losing all that XP if I get too tired. But anyway, I play on console just like it's a league kind of thing. But it's standard. And I prefer console, like just playing on a TV wherever I can. So if you have any console questions, just throw them my way. I know you got tons. You're super interested. I know you got them.
How do you like the channeling mechanic in Crucible with the controller?
It's standard.
Anything where it was like,
Oh no, but I do play
he
controller
hated that
support.
stuff. Yeah, he likes controller.
Which one was Crucible?
Last league, the 5 month.
I don't think he
league
almost
before
ever did
ExileCon.
Crucible.
Oh, that's the stupid like rogue,
it
like
was-
don't get hit in Path of Exile.
No,
league
that was
mechanic thing I
Sanctum.
just said?
Crucible
Oh,
was where
Crucible.
you like channeled to put the tree on your weapon.
Oh man, that would have been cool.
Forge.
Yep.
They-
I don't think
they
Ty really
really-
played that too much.
The
The mechanic side
it was
of it.
all right. It was. I did it for the extra enemies, but it wasn't like when you play casually and not very often, you're getting a lot of crap. And a lot of the times, especially because that first node could have so many negatives, it sucked for me as a
At least in the
casual player.
beginning, yeah.
Like it was just kept screwing over my
Mm.
minion build all the time. So I'm like, no, forget it. No, forget it. Just it was better off to just ignore it, except for the extra enemies. I do it on a weapon I knew I was going to junk. It was okay. They have weird controller things, like with Blight.
Blight's
pushing-
really bad with controller.
Pushing down on the left analog stick brings up the menu. So when you're close to it, so you don't have control. Like pretend I'm using an Xbox. I don't have one here. An Xbox controller. The main interaction button's the A button. That's also just so that you can use more skills. It's also a skill button. So most of the users will typically only use an instant skill on that, or they'll just keep it blank so that it's easy to pick things up. So that there's no conflict with that A button that picks things up and could also be a skill, the button to interact with the Blight Tower is pushing down on the left analog stick. But the left analog stick as a button, though it exists, is a pain in the butt for someone like me. Like when I'm playing a racing game, I'm the kind of player where I'm like full on like turning with it. I'm like, when I move my body, that controller's working way better than it should. And so like when I'm playing a game, I'm like, I'm pushing down on the left analog stick by accident all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've died because my character's not moving and I think it's like a stupid trap, or I don't know, like I'm frozen, but I'm not frozen. I don't know why. I'm like looking at all the top little things there, like what am I? And then I'm dead, and I realize I accidentally opened a blight tower. So,
time
some
to
of the
block blight on the
interactions-
Atlas tree.
I don't think he does it almost ever.
No, I don't. If I want to play tower defense, I'll go play defense grid, not Path of Exile. But with this, that's just my opinion. I know tons of people like blight, and that's great. Jonathan, it's like his favorite thing in the world, so it's not going anywhere. It's probably going to be
Really?
in PoE too. When he first came out, and like, but this is when he used to do Bay class and stuff like that, right before it just became Chris.
Yep.
I remember him very clearly saying, "I just love tower defense, and I really want to find a way to make it work. It had to get in the game at some point."
He didn't mention that one to us, at least. So it was Incursion and Delve that he said are making it for sure.
At PAX.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Incursion.
Incursion?
What? Incursion? I love
Incursion
so
and Delve
much.
are his two favorite ones, so they're going into PoE 2 for sure, he said.
There's so much you can do
Incursion.
with Incursion, but I don't like the timed aspect of, well, I guess anything. But I didn't answer your question again.
But you play standard, we get it.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Oh, and the controller with that league. That one was fine. I totally didn't answer your question. Whatever that was.
I just
Crucible with
asked
the
because
trees.
there was this like weird quirk where they had this design where if your first node that you unlocked, that you automatically allocated, right? When you channel on a Crucible, you get your first node, and then that one's detrimental to your build. They had this implementation where you could use a scour orb on the tree, but in order to use a scour orb on the tree, you had to bring the item into the map and interact with the Crucible. You couldn't do it on the Crucible tree in town, right? And then when we did that, we found out, like someone in my chat told me, well, there's no way that you can do this on a controller because you can't interact with your inventory when the Crucible tree is open, and you can't open the Crucible tree when you have a scour on your cursor. So this is fundamentally broken on controller. There's no way to do this.
There's definitely a lack of like, it seems like testing for some of that stuff when it comes to controller. Like when even this league came out, the first day Tyler and I were playing it, so we did some of the Tota stuff, and he ran the very first Tota that we ran, and he could with controller support, because as the passenger or whatever, riding through his trial, I couldn't see anything. He couldn't get any information on the controller support. There was no ability to see the help. There was no ability to see any of the information. So we were just like, all right, let's just see what happens.
Take our clothes off and see what happens.
They did eventually fix it, but controller's sort of like the unloved stepchild for sure.
Yeah, it was too bad because they did have those issues you were talking about. Are you up there? No, you're up there. They had you're up there, right?
You got it.
Am I pointing to you?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I hate you guys so much. So anyway, they had it was about 2 weeks in when they fixed it in Crucible, and then it's the same. I was really disappointed that again 2 weeks later they're fixing controller, the basics. It wasn't 2 weeks. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was maybe a weekend where they came out with some legit controller
within
fixes,
that first
but
week.
It is disappointing because like that's your hype, right? Like when you screw up the hype, it's like, oh, okay, and then it's like eventually I'll get back to it, but it sucks in the meantime. You know what I mean?
It's funny when you talk about controller because we have an episode coming out next week. So we have an episode that comes out in an hour from now, but then our next week episode, we actually sat down with Octavian for a bit and chatted with him. And one of the conversations we had was around the controller idea. And apparently they all have a controller sitting right there that they could test with, but it doesn't sound like it's used that often.
Have you played many other recent ARPGs? So like,
me or Tyler with controller?
Tyler with a controller.
Probably not
specifically.
I played Formula 1
right.
and Path of Exile.
And I played a decent amount of Torchlight Infinite and also Undecember.
Mm-hmm.
They're both like relatively new releases in the ARPG area.
I know Torchlight. Did you say Undecember?
Yeah.
Like not December, but Undecember?
Undecember.
Okay. Oh, I can't look it up. We're live.
They're both really good. And controller just works on both of them super well. And not only does it work super well, you can pick up your controller, run your map, and then as soon as you get into town and you want to do inventory management,
tell them you can touch keyboard and mouse.
And it's suddenly mouse and keyboard again. And you can do all your inventory management and all your allocations and everything you want. and then you can just lift your hand back, and as soon as you touch the stick, it's controller support again. Just instantly.
Dang.
It's crazy that PoE hasn't done
so
something like that
nice.
yet. Because there are
That is
actually
really
some features of the controller support that I would use in PoE, like the ability to fuse and jeweler orb, infinitely better on a controller. Just hold one button and just keep pressing it. It's way better.
Actually so nice to be able to run a controller like that, but I can never ever get behind controllers in PoE now because I need to do way too much inventory management stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's
especially because of like the amount of juice that I put on maps. Like I guess I'm like at the higher end of like, you know, I'm dropping tons and tons of stuff with the amount of juice I put in.
We get it. Yeah.
It's too much. I can't do that in a controller. I'll be like tripling the amount of time it takes me to do everything.
It takes way longer.
But if I could just play and then just put my hand on the mouse and do the things. Oh my God, I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy to use a controller.
Right now, you have to exit to the login screen to swap between keyboard and mouse. There are some really whoever designed the buttons for most of the buttons, like I was complaining about the blight button pushing down a left analog stick. To me, that should never exist. Your movements thingy, but they have some very ingenious ways of making all the different things work. Like there's so much in Path of Exile, and they've done a great job of, with the simplicity of a controller, actually making it all work or finding different ways to make it work. And there's some really cool things within controller support that aren't on keyboard and mouse. Like there's a smart flask system. So let's say I'm using 4 life flasks. If I have
which nobody but you does.
Please, I only use one now. Okay, I only use one, and I very rarely die. And the times I die has nothing to do with a life flask. It's just because I got punched in the face. I started a bar fight that I shouldn't have by somebody whose mods I didn't recognize. You know, like anyway, it doesn't matter. But what was I talking about?
Flasks, you got it. Smart flasks.
Oh, smart! Look at you. So smart flasks. Let's say I have 4 life flasks. LB will be that was an Xbox controller, so LB would be my life flask. If LB's life flask is empty, it'll use the next life flask. So I don't have to hit all the other button, like 1 2 3 4 5. So if you had that, it would be like if you had 5 life flasks, you would only ever have to hit number 1 on your keyboard, which is awesome. I absolutely love that. It is. I mean, it's really awesome to have if you had something like a Quicksilver flask that would trigger when you use a life flask, or then you have a different spider, and then you have a different one where it's like every time you use a quartz flask, it'll also use the neighboring flask or whatever. So it's nice that it'll use it no matter what. But then they also have auto gem leveling.
Yeah, that is actually, I would love that.
Is it automatic?
Automatic. It doesn't, when you don't want a gem to level, you just tell it to stop leveling at its current level. You can't, type in and say stop leveling at level 18, but it's really simple.
But you can tell it to stop leveling before it pops up and asks you to level it.
Right. And it will come up with a pop-up that says it's ready to level, but then it just disappears. So you don't have any pluses on your screen or anything like that. You don't have to click anything. So it is nice. So my method is just, let's say I want to cast some damage taken level 7. Well, I'll do one map with level 1. I'll have it blocked. And then at the end of my map, I'll unlock it, then lock it. It'll automatically go to number 2. I'll do a map, and I'll just unlock it at the end of every map.
I'm not really unhappy with how gem leveling works in general. Like obviously I'd love to be able to pop in my level 1 gem and tell the game, stop leveling this at level 15, and then I'm done, right? I don't have any big gripe with how it works currently, that it pops up and I have to tell it to either level or to not level. But my biggest gripe with that, and that's been in the game since I started, is the gems pop up all at the same time. We get the gem A, B, C, D, E, and you want to level A and B, but you don't want to level C, but you level D and E, and you press A and B, and then C switches the order in the list, swaps list order with E, and then you don't level E, but then you level D, and you're like, no!
Wasn't that supposed to be fixed? I swear I remember seeing something in a patch note that said that wasn't going to happen anymore, because I remember getting excited about it. It's definitely not happened, because that drives me crazy.
It got improved when it'll get improved or fixed when Act 3 gets the same buff that Act 2 and 1 got.
Yeah, I swear they said
it'll be a game improvement, though. It won't be a game fix. It won't be a bug fix.
Yeah. Balance changes.
That's right.
I'm sure you guys have some juicy insights to tell us about because you also saw the GGG people, right? Balor was at ExileCon, I was at Gamescom here in Cologne. You guys went to PAX West.
PAX West,
So,
yeah.
but before we get into that, I quickly want to hear some insights about the journey of you starting and running your podcast, because I just know next to nothing about your origin story. When did you start first, and like how did you come up with starting?
We started in 20. So I went to ExileCon with my son, my oldest son.
First one.
First son?
First ExileCon or first son?
Well, I guess
ExileCon.
first son, but
First
I meant
son
first
and
ExileCon.
My oldest,
just firsts, everybody.
him and I played PoE together, and then when ExileCon got announced, I had no interest in going, and he wanted to go, and so him and I went. That's tripping me out now. I know you can turn the camera off. I get it. Okay. So we went to ExileCon in New Zealand for the first one. Had a really good time. He knew everybody. Like, I didn't know who anyone was. He was standing in lines. He got a map signed by everybody, streamers and people from GGG. And I remember standing in ExileCon being like, what the hell is happening? Like, who are these people that my kid is like standing in line to see? He's getting all these signatures done. And somehow
Cat Master's gonna want to like get you to just repeat all this, right?
I'm sure he's listening. Maybe he's just
in here still.
Yeah, what is this, like I guess it's just a button. So my son was connected to some sort of group in Discord that was like organizing get-togethers and things or whatever that were happening. So the very first night, we went out with Tarky and who's the other guy from Bayclast?
It would have been either
smaller guy.
So many.
Noogie.
I know. Noogie, that's right. Noogie, and I don't remember who else. But anyway, we went out with them, and it just so happened, I mean, I wasn't very involved. My son was like loving it and having a great time. And I ended up sitting down at the booth for quite a long time at a booth with Tarky and just got talking to him, and he introduced himself and we got talking about what he does. And so I knew about Bay Class, but I had never really paid attention to it. So him and I got talking anyway. So long story short, I guess through the process of
you can start it over now that he's back.
Through the process
that was just warm up.
I heard it all except for the names of the person.
Did your background just change? I swear that's new. Okay.
No, that's the same background. I just like earlier in the first half of the podcast, I had a sweatshirt on, so it was black here.
The white.
Now I got white shoulders.
I love it. So we got
Tarky is the main name.
Yeah, so we got talking with Tarky, and then I actually started talking to him about why they're not, because at that point my business had already been running podcasts for inter stuff within our office, and I had said to him, like, why are you not making it audio? I don't understand. Like, I've never watched the video side of the podcasting thing. Audio for me is just very easy. I listen to audiobooks a lot. I'm in the car a lot, so I was asking him, like, what's the reason that you don't have it audio focused? And he had said that at that time they were trying to do it, but Octavian, I guess, was the one that was sort of taking the reins of that. And so him and I had talked about, he had asked if he could reach out, and we were going to talk about getting them into the podcasting, the audio version for their Bay Class. When I came back from ExileCon, I had reached out to Tyler and I was like, why don't we just, like, the two of us would meet up every Monday. We'd hang out every single Monday, literally since, I don't even know, a long time
before we were born.
Yeah, we've hung out every Monday night. We hang out and chill, and we go out for dinner and then play some games or whatever. And we would always talk about Path of Exile to like almost an embarrassing level. Like, if you're in the middle of a restaurant and you're talking,
there's no embarrassing level.
Well, there is. There is a little bit.
Nah.
Well, then you would have been awesome in there, because Tyler isn't quiet and loves it. And so I just said to him,
I don't know I'm loud.
No, he doesn't. He has no idea, but he is. And so we just thought, why don't we just for fun start up a podcast? Let's just start doing what we do on Monday for fun. And there were, at the time there were other podcasts out there, but there weren't too many that were consistently always putting stuff out. So we thought, well, let's just mess around. We do our Monday nights, we do our catch up, we talk PoE, and it took us a little bit to get into it, but that was the start. It was a result of ExileCon and realizing that there wasn't a big focus to push to an audio focused podcasts at that time, and for me that's what I listen to. I always listen to audio. I'm in my car all the time, so the video format doesn't really work that great for me when I'm traveling around. So that was kind of just the start of it. We just started messing around, and they were awful in the beginning, just awful.
Funnily
Our
enough,
episodes.
that's
We're not talking about
Yeah.
somebody else.
Our episodes, yeah.
No,
Oh,
you haven't heard our first episode. Bro.
Funnily enough, that's how a lot of like good things end up starting.
Yeah.
Is people sit around and they go, I want more of this thing,
Mhm.
but it doesn't exist.
Yep.
And no one is doing this thing, and there's not enough of this thing around that I want. And
It was-
and then after a little bit they go, you know what? Fuck it.
Kind of works.
I'll make the thing.
Yeah.
I'll
And
make
it
the thing I want.
We had like a really good talk at the beginning where we were like, we're going to do it the way we want to do it. And some people won't like it, and that's fine. We get a lot of people that go like, oh, your first 15 minutes is fucking awful. Stop talking about your real lives. And we love it. I think that's hilarious when people say it, because we don't care. We're fine with that. We talk about our life. That's us catching up. We talk about our lawns, which, that's fun for us. We like to talk about that shit. And it made it easy for us to do it every single week by doing it that way.
Yeah.
I have never cared about lawns, and somehow I still enjoy listening to the little lawn maintenance section, which is weird because I don't give a shit.
That's so
That's
funny.
awesome. Well, we've
Yeah.
had people reach out now that are like, hey, I need to do this to my lawn. Here's some pictures. What do you suggest? And we're like, well, I got a guy. That's my response is like, well, I got a guy that does it. But yeah, that was the start of it. We just basically we got doing it for fun, and it just made it because I've actually wondered for like you guys how you managed to do it with the time zone difference. Like that takes a bit of work. And one of the things I remember talking about with Tarky was they struggled with the idea that they have people like their guys were from everywhere. And then you take that difficulty plus all of them being streamers who your guys' hours are quite long and they're not always going to line up with each other. So there's a serious difficulty to trying to like, schedule that. So for us, we don't stream, we don't do anything live. We just literally hook up on Fridays and record an episode, and it's fun for us because we like to chat with each other. And yeah, it turned out to be a relatively easy process for us, which turned out decently.
How much is the post-production for every episode? Like you sit there for like 2 or 3 hours at the very least, right? To put it together.
I got this one. This one.
Okay.
So it's
I'm
like
curious
5
to see what
minutes.
you have to say.
All you have to do is come up with a title and description, and it just magically happens.
That's
So
Tyler's job.
I send Justin the information, and then it just works.
It's just magic.
Happens. It's
It
like
was
the
longer.
kitchen just automatically gets cleaned. I have no
Your
idea
clothes
how
get
it
put
happens.
away and they're folded. Like what
No,
the hell's
it's
happening?
Magic.
It's so weird.
It's pretty
The
easy.
magic.
Yeah. Our post-production has gotten way better. In the beginning, it was a long time. So our typical episodes are like an hour and 15. We always aim for 45 minutes. It's almost never ever happened. And post-production is it used to be 1.5 times the length of the episode, and now it's probably down to about 15 to 20 minutes per episode. There's processing that has to run on the audio that I have to do, but that can be done while I'm working. So like some of the processing that I do on the audio is done while I'm working, so it's not that bad. But total time where I'm actively doing something is probably around 20 to 30 minutes per episode, so it's not too bad. And then our
Okay.
After Dark, we purposefully said that we were not going to edit it as heavily as we would the main one. That hasn't
Justin's got
totally
problems
happened.
with the-
I don't have I have a struggle with stuff that doesn't like I have a hard time putting something out that's not
Polished
fine
to
for me.
the
Yeah,
level
so
that
it's
you expect
tough for
professionally.
me for After Dark, but After Dark is definitely our much less polished version. Also, I'm typically
After
a little
Dark is
bit
the
inebriated.
exclusive version on the Patreon, or
that's our Patreon one, and I
Yeah,
typically am inebriated, and we just it's much less targeted. I don't really know what you would call it, but so that it took me a way longer time in the beginning as I started to learn the process. Now that I know Tyler's voice, my voice for EQ, and like getting all that kind of stuff sorted in post, it's way faster. And then we didn't do YouTube in the beginning. We actually had no intention on ever doing YouTube, but people started to ask, and so we did, and we do it still now, but it represents such a tiny percentage of people that actually download and listen to the episode. But we continue it because people like it. We just don't, it's got a couple images and just rolls through the audio. But
all that concept art GGG posts.
Yeah, I steal their stuff
got
every league, and that's pretty much it. But to do this, like what you guys do with the live stuff, that not for me at all. It's just so much more work. At least I feel like it would be.
It's different
Sure.
weighting on the different aspects of the work, right? There's a lot of pressure on a live podcast to be well prepared, that you know what you want to say ahead of time, so you don't you're not sitting there like, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that. But at the same time, I feel like, once we are done with the show, we're done with the show,
Right. Yep.
We can just instantly let it go. There's
Walk
no
away from it, you're
processing, and I just do the thumbnails afterwards nowadays, because that's when I have.
You have to record the audio and then send it to Spotify, or how do you work that out with your distribution?
I just download, we record right here in the studio that we're doing the stream from, and I can just download an audio and video version, and then I upload with audio and video to Spotify. We're also as video on Spotify. It's apparently possible for mere mortals, like a while ago now. And
we had somebody actually say to us, are you going to start doing video on Spotify? Because Catmaster does it, and those guys do it for FATED. And we were like, I mean, we could, but
you don't have.
We're talking about a background of
exactly.
There's nothing to watch.
And we do video because it's already video,
right?
Right?
Yeah, we've already got the video
set up for video.
Yeah, we also if our episode is out, we've joked with people when we first started, we had Patreon levels that would allow people to join us during our recordings. We cut that out real quick.
That's dangerous.
Well, yeah, they weren't ever part of it, but they could watch. But the truth is, we record an audio based podcast, and it's very edited afterwards, in the sense of just trying to make it smooth. It is not uncommon for every single episode. I've got a call. Tyler's got a dog. There's quite often pauses or things that we have to do in the middle of it. So if we did
and who wears pants? So when
right now we're actually clothed. This is weird. We're not really super familiar with this side of it. So that's a struggle too. Like when you're doing a live one, if I want to go fill up a drink, like I'm debating doing right now, that's a struggle when you're doing a live episode.
Just go.
So it was easier for us to just focus on audio. That was also, I had the background in it. I understood it. The video side of it. This is literally the first time we've ever done video live anything. So we've turned down almost every single time that it's been asked. Oh no, every single time until now.
Didn't you have your episode number 100 with Tarky as a guest? Tarky was there as video in the middle, right?
Yeah. And that was sort of our joke. We kind of laughed at the fact that people were bugging us that they wanted video. So it was just the back of our heads. I had a camera set up behind us that was shooting at my couch with a big TV. Yeah, if you check out episode 100, we had Tarky on, and we had a camera behind our heads shooting forward with Tarky on the TV, and then I actually edited it later to have his actual video showing over top of the TV, so it looked clear. And it was just the back of our heads for the whole episode, and we kind of joked about the fact that everybody's been bugging us about video, and so here it is. Here's our video.
But the amount of effort that took him,
it was fun to do, but I wouldn't do it again.
It was a one-time experience.
That's a great joke, though.
Yeah, it was fun, and he knew we were going to do it. We had kind of joked with him about the idea of hey, people are bugging us about this. What do you think? And of course, as a streamer, he didn't have any problem with it. He was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So
Taki is also a troll at heart. He likes doing that stuff.
Yeah, he thought it was hilarious. So that was sort of the start. That's how we sort of rolled through it.
That's super interesting because when we started, for me personally, there was never even this discussion in my head. There was never even decision. Are we doing a video or a voice only or something like that? For me, I was brought up as a Path of Exile player, so to speak, with State of Exile and Bayclast and with the Coffee Talk and with
was State of Exile video too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I feel like you're the only audio only PoE
thing? We are. Currently.
There isn't, and I don't think there ever has been an audio only.
Yep. Which we took a lot of flack for in the beginning because it confused people. They were used to seeing streamers, and we were like, well, we're not streamers. We're just two idiots that are talking about Path of Exile.
And in the larger sphere, we're the weirdos. not you. Because
In the podcasting side, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Like in the larger sphere of podcasting, it is
Yep.
mostly audio.
Yep. Not
Just
in Path of Exile, though,
inside
for sure.
PoE, it's
Mhm.
been exclusively video format.
Yep. And I think
Yeah.
that's primarily because it's a lot of streamers, which does make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
the benefit for a streamer is that you have a following, people know who you are, they may be more inclined to hook in and to listen or whatever. So it does definitely make sense.
Yeah,
we're
the
all like-
recognizability.
And
Yeah,
we're all
but
like a little bit narcissistic. Like I want my face on as many things as I can possibly put my face on.
Yeah.
it's also
Right.
an aspect, but most importantly, we're international, right? You guys are from probably the same neighborhood, right? Like you're in the same
2
city.
blocks away.
You,
Mhm.
you see each other all the time. You know exactly how you talk, and just from the audio version, you can interact with each other.
Hmm.
And probably a lot of your audience is also American, right? They know your mannerisms, your pattern of
Mhm.
speech. But with Balor being Australian and me being German with the weirdest accent and the weirdest like sort of ways to build sentences, and then like having guests from Lithuania or Russia or Siberia, you know, like with such an international cast, it really helps tremendously to have the facial feature, to have that level of communication, because as we all know, like a large portion of human communication is not included in the spoken word, but in the melody that you use and like, you know,
Even the
way you
facial
build your
stuff.
sentence.
Like when we do
Exactly.
our interview episodes, they are camera. Like we use camera when Tyler and I record every single week. There's camera. We see each other. It's much easier to record when you can see the human and you can actually, you know, just audio is very, very difficult to have a conversation with someone. So all of our interviews have the video side of it. Every interview we've ever done has had the video aspect. We just have the difference of that video is not recorded.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't go into the cast itself.
we have
but
a
it's
slight
there for
benefit
you.
too, because it's not live and it's very heavily edited. So we, you know, like any of the things we do with GGG go to them to confirm that we're fine and that the edit is good and that they're, you know, that we're not, something's not happening in that episode that needs to be cut out. So there's a bit of a barrier that we get to jump across because they're less nervous or worried about, you know, what they might say or what they might do. And even with video for when we have guests on, I mean, we do all of them clothless. That's the goal, right? Just makes everybody feel comfortable.
That's right. Right off the bat, everybody knows they're welcome. I want to ask how you two got married in a sec, but one thing that Justin touched on and then forgot to get back to was that one thing that I'm very glad that we've been able to stick through with. We promised each other at the beginning that we would do two things. We would only do this as long as we were having fun. As soon as it became a chore, and he's getting a drink.
I'm getting a drink.
Yeah. So he's the busy one, right? Like I'm a stay-at-home parent. My wife's the worker. I stay home. So despite the fact that I have busy days, I can mow the lawn tomorrow. I don't have to mow it today. I can do the dishwasher in an hour and a half. So my timeline's flexible, whereas he's the one with the all grown-up stuff going on, and he's the editor. So we promised each other, as long as we're having fun and we're still enjoying it, we'll do it. But as soon as one of us isn't having fun with it, we'll cut it. And then I forgot what the other one was. Oh yeah. We're only going to do stuff that we want to do. That doesn't mean like we're against advice, and we've had some very efficient constructive criticism, but also we're not, the point of that was we're not going to do anything just to be popular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
It's
good
just
for the content, but it sounds miserable to do. You just be like, meh, oh well. Guess that won't happen.
yeah, I
Like,
guess
I don't
like
wanna do
so
that.
we've made some changes based on some people's feedback, but at the end of the day, we're doing this for ourselves. We know not we're doing it for the fans too, right? Just like you guys do, but you can only do so much to please people. You know what I mean? And I mean, GGG would know this. We all know this, being involved in the community, whether you're a guide creator, a podcast creator, whatever it is, like you can only please so many people and you're going to displease just as many people. There's always going to be conflicting forms of information. So the
Absolutely.
substance of what we want to do and how we structure things are based on how we would just normally hang out. And if we lose a ton of listeners because of that, fine. Well, they probably wouldn't like they wouldn't like us anyway. And those that stick around and do enjoy us and listen on a regular basis, it's, you know, it just makes it so much easier to, like, the people that are within our community and interact. We've never kicked one person from our Discord. Everybody just gets it. Like,
That's
we have one
impressive.
rule: don't be a dick. Everything else is and everybody's fine. Everyone's legit. That like it's just, because they get us and then they like us, and that's how it is. Like it's all just like one big understanding, I guess you could say, because there's no like bending for the sake of fame or popularity or whatever's hot for the moment. So I'm glad we've been able to stick to that, because there's also always going to be pressure, right? Like when you're a guide creator, when you're a filter creator, when you're doing podcasts, there's always that pressure to do something that's a little bit extra for others as opposed to what you like. And so that was actually something that guide creating really helped me with podcasting was I got to take a deep breath. I'm making a build for me and I'm posting it. So if people like it, they can play it. I'm not making a build for them. I'm making a build for me. And if they want to play it, they can. You know what I mean? And that was, I kind of learned both at the same time, I guess you could say. But so anyway, that was just something that Justin.
You got it, buddy. You got it.
Anyway, how'd you two get married?
Yeah, how did you get into the podcasting stuff together? Like, what was that process for you?
What?
I told my side of this so many times, Bella. Please tell your side.
Though. I wasn't here when this podcast started.
Oh, was it just a one-man thing?
No, there was.
Or was there somebody else?
Oh shit!
The second wife.
There was a guy who asked me to do a podcast because he was at the time streaming Path of Exile, and he was like, "Hey, we should do a podcast together." And it sounded like a really random thought by him, but I was like, why not? Let's go for it. Give it a shot. And we did like 1 or 2 episodes, like just with the two of us, and then we started having guests. And I think Balor was our 3rd or 4th guest.
Oh, okay.
Within the first 10 episodes. Waifugate was the guy. I
don't know why you asked, Ty, like you're gonna know.
No, I'm curious.
Oh, Waifugate was fairly popular at the time. When I started streaming in 2017, Waifugate had his Wind Ripper City MF build, right? Like some sort of Wind Ripper, I think. Was it a Ranger? Was it a Deadeye? Or was it I think it was a Raider back then. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. But anyway, like some MF bow build that he was farming hoarder cards and vaults with, and like getting reasonable viewer numbers and popularity with that, because that's content that people want to see. The softcore degens want to see how many of those Exalt cards can you squeeze out of your maps.
Was the focus always to bring guests in then? Like, was it always like, was it ever just a 2-man show or?
Well, the original idea was we both had just gotten into the streaming, and we were both agreeing that while, we're interested in talking to each other, but equally interested in growing our streams, growing our communities,
sure,
getting our names out there. So yeah, it was from the very start, we said, yeah, we want to have guests. And like very quickly when starting the podcast, I realized that was also our niche, because Bakelast had just transitioned into a fixed roster, right? Bakelast moved away from the model of having changing guests weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, but they went into a fixed roster. And I was really someone who especially loved it when very unlikely matchups happened on podcasts, right? Like people from different corners of the community, like the most HC SSF veteran elitist player meets with the softcore trade juicer, and like the clash of opinions. That was always my thing. That was always where I was like, that's really the content, the conversations that I want to happen, that I want to see happen in the community. And that's something that kind of went away. And so that's the niche that we kind of transitioned the podcast to.
So how'd you get into it then, Baylor, as like actually being part of it?
Well, somewhere around, I want to say like episode 10. It was pretty early. Waifu decided to stop playing, basically. He wanted out of PoE.
Dang,
and so
that's
he wasn't
quick transition from wanting to grow, wanting to do a podcast. Bye.
Yeah, well, he still
real life
streamed.
sometimes.
He just wanted to move games. He was just like,
okay,
I'm not doing this anymore. Which I guess sent Catmaster on. I'll be like, do I keep doing this? If I keep doing this, do I do it alone? If not, who do I do it with?
Sure.
A whole list of things, and then eventually, I don't know if I was the 1st or the 7th person he asked, but at some point he asked me, and I was like, yeah, fuck it.
You're relatively high on the list, but I'm not afraid to admit that I had considered Octavian as a co-host before you. But that was, just before Tarky Cat announced that Octavian
I would take Octavian over me. So I'm not going to be upset by that. He's so good. Anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I said yes and came in. But interesting, you brought up the point about like we would only do this if it was still fun, and you were surprised by like Tyler's got a lot of time, but Tagz doesn't. I keep reading screen names and then messing up real names.
Yeah.
That's very confusing.
Call us whatever you want. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I go over to his house, and when his wife answers the door, I'm like, "Can Tagz come out to play?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I meant to put Justin, aka Tagz. I forgot. Sorry.
But interestingly enough, a while back, I was not having fun anymore.
In the podcasting side or the PoE
Yeah.
side? Okay, sure.
Podcasting. And I was ready to dip out. But it was the organizational side of things that bothered me, not the podcast. I was getting like a lot of anxiety and stress around trying to like book people and like have things planned in advance. And I was telling Kat, I was like, I can't do any of this stuff. I can't this stuff on top of everything else I'm doing in my life and working and streaming.
Interestingly,
and
we both
everything.
were at the same point. We both individually came to the same conclusion and confronted each other about it. Whereas like, Balor, this can't go on like this.
Oh,
it was
interesting.
hilarious because he at the same time was trying to figure out how to bring it up to me that I wasn't pulling my weight on the end we'd agreed with, at the same time as I was sick of not pulling my weight at of the things we'd agreed with.
Interesting.
And so when I went to him, I was like, I'm not happy with how I'm doing here. And he's like, oh, thank God, that makes this so much easier. And so it ended
It's not
up,
me, it's you.
Yeah, it ended up, I bowed out of most of like 95% of the background organization stuff. I just don't do it. It's all Catmaster now.
Yeah, it's instead of being Fated Connections brought to you by Balor and Catmaster, it's now Fated Connections brought to you by Catmaster featuring Balor Mage. So it's basically the same except in name.
Yeah, I don't do most of that stuff anymore. And that was the stuff that it ruined all of the fun for me. But not just ruined the fun, it wasn't just work. It was like, I don't really know how to explain it. It was a lot of like anxiety and stress and like self-hatred when I didn't do the things right. And it was like,
I can totally get
speaking
where you're
legit.
talking.
You're speaking legit to like everybody listening. Like this isn't something that you can't. I don't think you could explain it any better. There's so many people that are listening feel exactly the way you're feeling about so many different things. So how'd you guys like fix it all? The responsibilities went over to Kat, and then you guys are happy. Like how are things? How's your marriage?
Along with the responsibilities, I also just was like, we were trying to make sure that like if it grew in scale, because like right now we don't make a lot of money out of this. No one really does. But we were trying to make sure that if it grew in a scale to the point where money was relevant, originally we were trying to make sure that that was also split and that I was getting some and he was getting some and everything was fine.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't care about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I care about not having to do all of the things that have been causing me to want to pull my own hair out.
Yep.
And so I gave him back the YouTube side of it and all of the other things, which is also around the same time as it went to many different platforms because he's just a more organized, responsible human being than I am, and I can never get that.
By contrast, I'm not very organized.
Comparatively.
Well, I'm actually impressed how often you guys, because you guys have guests every episode, I think.
It's our goal. Like the thing is, that's the big trouble that we are with the podcast as compared to yours, where you guys have been consistently doing an episode almost every single week since ExileCon 2019.
And every
because
single
we've
week,
exceeded the 200 episodes now, right? I kept track of it.
207 or 206 comes out.
So that you can't have missed more than a handful of weekends.
We've never missed one. We've never missed
there
one.
You go.
Never.
Well, there has been times in the past 4 years we haven't done a podcast in 2 months because we both have this expectation that when we do another episode, it really needs to be planned out and structured, and we need to have interesting guests with interesting things to talk about. And there's a lot of pressure that we put onto ourselves that we maybe shouldn't put onto ourselves. I've also been in the past like, Balor, people would be completely happy if we just did an episode, you and me sitting there talking about the game. We don't need to bring in anyone new. We don't need to discuss any new Path of Exile. We could just be talking about skill gem 2D art for 2 hours and people would be loving it. But Bella was always like, no, I don't think people would be interested. So like, and if one of us feels like that, then we don't do an episode, right? Because you don't want to do an episode with that mindset of people are not going to be interested, right? You need to be hyped about it yourself.
So when like we don't do very many interview episodes, and that's mostly my fault because I don't want to, because I don't know how you guys organize with 2 or 3 additional people. We have our schedule, it works fantastic for us, but when you add another person into that, it's really tough because you've got time zone differences and all these different things that come into play. And this is not a career, so it's just for fun, and to try and balance that around somebody else's schedule is very difficult for me to do. I
Let
had a
alone 2 other people.
well, yeah, I can't even
Right.
imagine. I think we've only once ever had 2 additional people, and they were the same time zone, so it wasn't a big deal. But even just one person that stresses me out. I start to, exactly what Baylor said, I start to get anxiety, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, that's not. I'm starting to lose the excitement
Yeah.
and the fun of getting together and doing our thing, because now I'm worried about how do we make it work with that person. Also, post just becomes a little bit more work when I add a third person in. But we I
But
talked
then in After Dark, we have an
After
episode-
Dark, I
it was-
don't care.
It was a long time ago, but we had our wives and a couple friends on, and then we did
One
that
friend,
again, like that was just for ExileCon.
Yeah, we did for
And,
ExileCon too. Mhm.
It's
I
like
didn't care
hell
about
for
that. That was
Justin.
fine.
No, like, but post, it's like all of a sudden he's editing like 7 people.
Yeah, it's not. I just don't. I'm not into the schedule side of it. But I did have a chat with Tarky. I remember having a talk with him at one point, because they used to have a lot of people on, and they've got all their. I don't even remember who was all on it, but then you throwing guests into that, and you guys doing like 2 to 3 guests per. And I think you guys actually did it too, which I think is really smart. Which is, I remember him saying to me, if we don't have something to talk about, there's no point in us doing an episode. Like, if it gets to the point where we're far enough into the league, and maybe there's just nothing to really rehash or go over, there's no reason for us to get together. We have the slight benefit of that we talk about Path of Exile. We're not. First off, we're not bouncing off of other people to get their stuff. It's just the 2 of us being idiots, and we're fine if only 30 minutes of that is Path of Exile and talking about the updates and things we're playing right now. But I think it is a tough spot for people who are streaming and then throwing guests into that, because as the league gets on, I mean, I can't speak for you guys. I can only speak for myself, and I don't play nearly as much as people who stream it do. You start to run out of stuff to talk about without saying the same thing over and over again.
That happens a lot, and I'm probably the one that calls it first when I'm just
Yeah.
like, "There's nothing." I just Kat will be like, "We need to do another episode," and I'll be like, "There's nothing to do."
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean another episode? And he'll be like, but he can't come up with something to talk about. Be like, but it's, especially when it's like a 4-month league.
The last one was brutal.
We've done like 8 or 9 episodes with a total of like 10 or 12 guests this league already. And I'm just like, we've said everything. We have no new information. There is nothing to do. Whereas your guys' podcast has that, like, I feel like I could listen to you guys for an hour and 15 minutes of it could be PoE. And I would still be happy having listened to that.
I love you,
which
Baylor.
is not it's not the energy or the atmosphere that I feel like we give out normally. Like, this is a lot less PoE talk than we would normally do, which is fine. But like, I don't think it's the
That's our
standard
fault,
here.
though.
Well, I was actually worried leading into this Fated Connections, because we've never done live. We've never done anything like this before. And I remember saying to Tyler, like, we're idiots. We're casual. Like, for me, especially, insanely casual. I play very little. And so I was actually a little bit worried, like, when I messaged you, Kat, in Discord, and you were like, "Oh, it's fine. There's people watching." People don't make me nervous. It's the idea that, like, if you start talking about like, "Well, the numbers on this skill is da 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 da," I'd be like, "I'm checking out. Just give me more alcohol," because I have nothing to add to this conversation. So we have the benefit of that. People that listen know we're idiots, and they're not listening because, I mean, Tyler does his builds, and people do like to follow his builds, but even that,
people
we're
don't
not talking
learn
about
anything from us. They learn stuff from you guys.
Yeah, you guys are the guys that like help them figure out stuff. And I remember in our first like maybe 15 or 20 episodes, we used to end it with a, what did we call it? It was like a newbie tip of the week. It was awful. It was awful. We realized really quick, like, we're idiots. Why are we even telling people, like, oh, I don't know, don't hit Z or Z or whatever, and not pick your
don't rate yourself that low, dude. Like, I try to do that. Like, whenever we have guests on, I try to, like, it's a question that I frequently put into my preparation document is like, give us something that you think, new players should know that is not immediately obvious, but like that helped you a lot as a new player. And you would be surprised like how many like, useful things come out of that.
Yeah, we ran out pretty quick.
Yeah, and we don't know any of them anyway.
We learn more listening to other people's stuff, and then we're like, oh, hey, so-and-so said.
Yeah. I mean, you could use that as a tool for engagement. You could be like, hey, guys, send us your best trick for new players, and we'll talk about it on the next episode.
Yeah, we would. I mean, our Discord is amazing. The people are awesome, but they're also very similar. So they'd say the same stupid shit that we would say, and then find it hilarious that we repeated the dumb, I don't know, repeated or obvious stuff.
They would lie to us just
Yeah,
so
that's
that we
true,
would
too.
think it's legit, and then we would say it, and then
I was going to say that's exactly what my audience would do.
Yeah.
They would make shit up,
Right.
but make it sound as reasonable as possible in hopes to trick me into
It's the
going
wrong
with
burger.
it in front of a large audience,
Yep,
knowing
just
full
read
well
it.
that it was wrong to begin with.
100%. Yeah.
Because if they can fuck with me, they
Oh, they'll
will
do
do it.
Mhm.
I-
I have to
Yeah,
say
well-
though, those are the favorite people. Like
Oh,
for us at
absolutely.
least. Yeah, I love those people that are. I think I actually saw. I think it was when you were streaming Diablo 3. I remember there was somebody that said something about you being mad at them or making a comment, and you said, if I have a problem, I'll say something. And I was like, I love that, because he's, it's just there's an honesty with the people who are, conversing with you. It was actually pretty fun to listen to.
But Balor would never spread unverified, probably false information that he anecdotally picked up somewhere. 8 people PoE 1.
Look, I was not wrong.
Where'd you get
but
that
also
from?
was wrong.
What was it? Somebody said that you were going to get 8-player?
No, okay. So
I
it
need to
was
know
just
now.
a casual thing I said on a stream. I was on Gazzy's stream while we were at ExileCon, and I mentioned, because by 2 different people at that point, the same number had been mentioned, and it was mentioned both times in groups with a bunch of other people around. So I was like, surely I don't get in trouble for this. I mentioned that there had only been 8 people working on PoE 1.
Okay.
And
Yep.
and that got clipped, obviously, and ended
posted
up
on Reddit.
everywhere. Like Asmongold watched
I
it
feel like
in
I actually
front of
remember
thousands of people, and like it turns out that was wrong.
Right.
it was 9.
It was well later on that same day, because that clip got popular, I got told 12 by a few people, and then I got told 20 by a few people, and these were all people that worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up having to ask somebody higher up to find out what the hell was going on. And the answer was, it seems like everyone had done their best guess to average out how many people had working on it at any one given time.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been as low as 8. It could have been 20 or higher at any given time, but people are jumping to and from projects all the time.
Yep. Mhm.
And so there'll be easily 50, 60, 80 people have had their hands on this league, but there might only be 20 people working on it today. And what needs to be done tomorrow might only require 8 or 10 people.
Right.
So it's a much more limited staff than it had been in the past, because it's been split, but it wasn't anywhere near as low as the numbers that I was saying. But it was just
I feel like
something
I remember
sort of
that.
offhandedly mentioned
Mhm.
while Gazzy was in the bathroom. And then he's, you stay stuff live.
Like you're going live, yeah.
And
Mhm.
people press the button, and then that goes everywhere. Like I tweeted out that I was wrong, and I
Doesn't
was
matter.
like, yo, this information was wrong. I like added Asmongold, who I've never talked to before. But like I hope that he read it, because like I was just like, that's like the biggest
funny.
bit of misinformation that I've ever put out, which I didn't know was misinformation at the time.
Sure. Yep.
Right? Like I thought I was just repeating stuff that I heard from developers at a pub and multiple people, and I was like, that must be right, but it ended out to be not right. I tried my best to recover from it. Luckily, the person who made the big Reddit post that blew up also put like an edit in on the Reddit post and was
good.
like, boom, here's an update, and linked to my tweet and whatnot. So I tried to get as much out there as
I'm
possible.
sure everybody
but
reads that. Mhm.
but I promise more people saw the original
Yeah,
than
yeah.
saw the correction.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Like you
always
can
like
never
that.
equal those things. That's not.
No. And
that's
even
not-
if they were told there's a correction, they don't want the correction. They want to hear that number was really low.
I
Yeah.
remember seeing that, because I remember us talking about it in an episode following that, and I purposely did not say specifically as to what it was, because I had heard that there was, some possible thing. And I just remember us talking about the decrease in the numbers for how many people were working on it.
All right. Now that we're in the section of spreading vague information based on secondhand delivery, what have you guys heard from Path of Exile devs at PAX? You guys
Okay,
talked to
PAX was
Rishi and to
awesome.
Jonathan, and how was your experience?
They were
there?
just like they just talked. They just
It was
talked.
very
It was like
weird.
they were fine saying everything. You know that like the Jonathans and Chris's were just like guarded. They're used to the repeating the exact
Jonathan
same thing
wasn't guarded
over
at
and
all.
over and over.
Nah.
Jonathan was
I
not
think
guarded.
John and Chris are both let things slip all the time.
Sure, but this is like information. This is PoE2. This is like a very structured thing from the time of Exile. Like this ExileCon and that ExileCon were totally different, because the first one, I remember when Jonathan was sitting on the couch after ExileCon 2019 and he's like, "Oh, ask me anything." But then that lasts a week, right? Because then they have other decisions to make and other plans and that kind of stuff. But now that's not this, right? They have so much more that they have such a long marketing plan ahead of them. But it felt like when we were talking to Rory and Octavian and Harishi and Justin, I forget his name, James. And
Viper Rescue me. Yep.
Well, just like they just seemed like just how their demeanor was. They were open, they were chatting, and I think one of the more interesting things was the progressive. What was the term that they used, Justin, for how the campaign's going to be different every league?
Well, yeah. So Jonathan was a lot of fun. Like we talked to all of them. It was funny because I remember at one point Octavian joking that Rory could tell us a lot more, because I think there's a hierarchy of who can get more trouble than other people.
Yes.
So Rory and Jonathan were very, very open with their conversations and answering questions. But one of the cool things with the conversation with Jonathan was the idea that there will be a the alcohol is probably doing this. What's the word when procedural generation? So right now maps are procedurally generated, and they're going to be pulling that into the world. So every league, the world itself will get procedurally generated. And he was like over the top excited about it. Like he said a couple times like how excited he was for this idea that they were doing it. And he referenced very specifically Act 4, because I did ask him, well, how will it work for previous acts? He said there's a little bit of it in Act 2, but you'll really see it in Act 4. Act 4 is where they start to do these 7 islands that
Act
you
4
can
is boat league.
Yeah, where you can jump between these islands. And he said the idea between these 7 islands is that 3 of the islands are gonna contain the whatever you need to progress through the actual act itself, but that leaves 4 other islands that will have other things. And I said, well, so what are the purpose of these islands? He said, well, one of them is going to be for the ascendancy. So there will be he said the ascendancy trial. He didn't give me any other details with regards to that, so I don't really know exactly.
And we didn't push that.
We didn't push it
because
no.
From Exile
Act 4 that's called Exile's Prison, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that was specifically as Act 4, but yeah, there's definitely going to be something. He said the 3 will be 2, 3, and I think it's 2, 3, and 4 acts will unlock the first 3 ascendancies, and then something in Endgame will unlock the 4th one. But these 7 islands will be every single league, the order or the way that you run through these 7 islands will change each league. It will be the same for everyone, but that you won't always know which island you need to do until you've done it once before. But that the other
each
islands
league will be randomized.
Right. But that the other islands will contain stuff that's worthwhile doing. So, like they talked about this permanent, what was these permanent buffs, or in one case, the trial, that kind of stuff. But then he said the thing that was really cool is he said that there will be something that will drop. There will be an item. It was a token or an item that will drop in endgame that will actually start to bring you back into the acts, which was really different. I can't think of anything PoE 1 related where it pulls you back into the acts to do it. But he said that this token or this item would actually bring you back into the acts, is specifically for Act 4 with this token. He didn't say how you would use it or what it would do specifically, but that it would somehow interact with the end game for PoE 2. So that's kind of fun. Like I don't know. I'm blindly optimistic with regards to PoE 2. I think I've been like that for like 8 years since we've been waiting for it, but that seems fun. Like the idea that there's something that also is not just mapping, but something that, because I hate the acts, hate them. It's one of the worst parts about PoE for me personally. I hate leveling. I don't like going through them every single time. But the idea that it might shift a little bit each league might be kind of fun. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm actually curious as to that because I personally think there will be a big shift where people will actually find the end game repetitive and will be looking forward to leveling each new character because at least for the first year or so, because every playthrough of the campaign is going to feel so fresh and so dynamic.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that it's probably not going to be every character that you make is different, but rather every league. The process will be different.
That's right.
So it would be both. I think both. I think there will be elements for both, right? I think like from league to league, they'll change up things in the acts, but then also every character you play through, there's minor decisions that you can make that will impact how in the same way that in Act 2, you can decide which of the quarters of the acts you tackle first and which you tackle last, right?
Yeah.
And there will be decisions on that of a character to character.
That's from ExileCon 1, where they were saying based on what you do, because of this quest that you did, this area is blocked off and you got to go this way. Exactly. I don't know if they continued with that. They've changed a lot since, but I do remember them mentioning that in 2019. Yeah.
His comment to us was that the procedural generation will be specific to the league and the same for everyone. So everyone that plays the league will see the exact same new world. I am a little curious though, like how that, like he was way overexcited about this, like really excited. So it makes me very, I feel like I'm pretty confident in thinking then it's more than just Act 4 that because he's talking about like he said the whole world, like Rayclass or whatever it's called, that is procedurally generated every single league and that it's very different each league.
I also think it'll be really important that every character that league is the same. Because without doing that, you lose competitive racing entirely.
Right. Yep, totally.
Which I don't care about racing. I'm never going to race. I'm never going to win a race. That's never going to happen. But people care about it a lot. And it's pretty important for the general, like, I don't know, atmosphere. That's the wrong word.
Well, there's a group of people that love
community.
That stuff.
Yeah. Like it's huge. And so if every single run was different, it wouldn't be like, oh, here's our like 5 or 6 best dudes like duking it out to try and become number one. It becomes, well, here's the 5 or 6 most likely people to get the right layout or the right zones.
You throw into the RNG of drops, also the RNG of like the world, which doesn't really work super great.
That would be really lame. But having it be different every time, but the same for everyone throughout that league would be fantastic. Because then next league, when I come back, it's different.
It's something different.
Especially, hopefully, there's still nothing like a PTR or anything. So the first playthrough of a new league, everyone collectively is experiencing a different leveling procedure than we did last time. That would be very cool if that's the way it works out. Like if that's the way it ends up feeling, that would be amazing.
Yeah. When you say PTR, are you talking about like the alpha group or what are you?
I'm just PTR private test realm. I'm just hoping that they don't do anything like that. I've had a lot of people asking for it. It's a thing that I hate. It's like Diablo does it. But you can just download and play whatever the new season is going to be before the season launches, and that's where they get all the guides and all the tier lists and all the everything and all the content is done for Diablo before the season even starts. Everyone knows what's the best, what worked out the best, how to tackle the league, everything. I hate that.
They don't do anything like that currently, right? With PoE?
No.
Well, they have an alpha and they have a limited number of alpha testers, but they have non-disclosure agreements, right? And
well, and their alpha team was like drastically reduced just recently too. So yeah, I can't imagine they would do anything crazy like that. But
it's become somewhat of a standard thing in a lot of other games.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's easier to, instead of having your own internal testing team, just throw out a separate server where people can just log on and won't complain about bugs and bad performance and all that because they know it's just, all early access, so to say.
And I've had an alarming amount of people being like, I wish PoE would do something like this.
Oh,
and
I don't
I'm
like
just
that at all.
very strongly no,
No, I'm with
please
you on that
no.
one. Yeah, I
Like,
agree with you.
Even if it was like a much more closed thing, I would never want access to that, and I would never want any streamer to get access to that.
Mm-mm.
Like, do not let your content creators see the content before everyone else.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I'm one of the content creators that would benefit heavily from that. If they gave me the opportunity to get into content and prepare content beforehand, I would say yes, because it is way too much money. Way too much money. If you let me make a whole bunch of content ahead of time, I can't turn that down. That's free money. You should never, ever let us do that. Ever. It would be terrible for the game. Do not let that happen. But if you said, here's the opportunity, I'm taking it because I'm not an idiot. Like, that's too much real life money. But don't let it happen.
I did ask Jonathan about the beta stuff.
I don't think we ever will, by the way. I don't think it's a real
I don't think so either.
thing.
I think
it's just a thing some people in the community have asked for, but it is never going to happen. I don't think they'll ever do that.
I wonder too sometimes if the community, people that ask for that, are not actually fully grasping what that could potentially do to the game. Like, I think they should. I like that they have an alpha group. I wish they had alpha with more full access earlier and maybe a little bit larger. I know it's really hard to control on their end, but I think their game would come out with some less obvious bugs, at least, that I feel like, you know, the leagues come out with. But yeah, I don't think that would be a good idea either. We did ask them though about the beta stuff, like how beta will work, and it sounds like it's going to be very similar to closed beta for PoE 1, where it will be a, you know, paid whatever, what did they call it? One of the paid
support packs.
Yeah, I think Chris said something along the lines of like everyone who spent in their lifetime on their account exceeding a threshold of like a couple hundred will automatically be
couple
granted
hundred.
access.
So
yeah, I think he said something like if you spent in your lifetime like $500 on Path of Exile, you're definitely getting in.
I might be there on Weta purchases.
Yeah, they said the same thing.
So?
Jonathan said their plan was for 3 months, but that was not a guarantee. That obviously if they felt like they needed longer, they would go longer, but
the whole end game is going to be there. He said the entire end game,
everything
the only
will
thing,
come.
Everything, like every
But
ascendancy, every
content.
class, they want you to crush the game. They're trying to, like, they want everything from server loads to bugs. I mean, hopefully everything's worked out by then, but that's not how they work. So it'll be like, you know, as they want it to be as balls to the wall as possible. The only thing that's not going to be there are the league mechanics, not core game mechanics like, you know, taunt or armor or anything like that, but the league mechanics like metamorph and incursion and the
Metamorph's not going in. We already
know which is cool. I love the concept of metamorph, but it's so poorly done. So I'm glad it's staying.
Jonathan
out.
hates it.
Also imagine, like, I mean, how is metamorph going to work with the new bosses that they're doing for every zone? Like those super complicated, very mechanical bosses that would just like translate very weirdly into metamorph. I think
so many of those league mechanics though have to dramatically change.
Oh yeah,
so many of them. Like everything from like I used to joke like Harvest. I think it was maybe a year ago, maybe 3 leagues ago, that they changed how Harvest monsters spawn. You know, first it's normal, then it's magic, and a few seconds later it's the rare enemies. Like they started doing them in slight waves. Before it just used to be click on a Harvest, there it is, everything's there, and it was like the perfect example of what PoE is. You know what I mean? You just click on a Harvest, there's everything, and good luck figuring out who's dangerous,
2-second lag spike, and then resurrect in town.
Right, that's more. I want it back.
But you get.
Wait, you love what? You love what?
I loved it more when they all came out at once.
Oh yeah.
You know what we should do though? From this point forward, we should just say, if you know what I mean, at the end of everything, and it will turn everything crazy sexual. I mean, let's start talking about Delve and throw in, if you know what I mean, about anything. And anyway, but like you look at any of these encounters and you're trying to go with this more systematic gameplay where you're trying to see what there is, the visual clarity that we're expecting. We've only seen the slower gameplay. We've only seen Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Who knows what maps are going to be like? They've told us that things are going to pick up the pace. They've intentionally made things more difficult for the demos, but you still have this delay when you're casting. It's part of the character animation now. You still have the dodge roll instead of I mean, they don't even have Quicksilver Flask, let alone movement skills. So maybe there's not even a Quartz Flask or a phasing thing. Maybe that's only on a Raider or whatever other ascendancy they're going to do. Maybe it's a character perk. But they've changed just the absolute basics of everything so that you have to pay attention to how long each skill takes to cast, if it's going to be instant or not, if it's going to be triggered or not, that you need to be able to see what's happening. And think about any League mechanic and how they throw monsters at you and enemies. Everything has to change. Everything. Like, look at Incursion. He promised Incursions. Well, not promised. He said, I really want Incursion to be in. That's definitely going to be in. How are you going to do Incursion? Like, you have to change it big time. Like how these enemies come at you and they're thrown at you. It's a time-based thing. Does it stay time-based because enemies are slower now? I'm excited to see what it's like. But it's going to be weird. Like, let's say they have to dramatically change all these different League mechanics as they slowly implement them. I guess we were on the subject of beta and I totally threw it out the side, but you have, like, if these have to dramatically change these League mechanics for PoE 2, but if you're one of those players that hops between PoE 1 and PoE 2, that'd be quite an interesting experience. You go from like the crazy spastic version of PoE 1 to the much more controlled, assumably much more controlled version of PoE 2. But anyway, beta.
Two thoughts on that. One is they're removing things from the game where they're not really an option, right? Like, you have the option to equip with Quicksilver. You have the option to get phasing on your character. But are these really options? In the fully fledged endgame build, you want to play the game efficiently, I'd say in 90% of cases not, right? You have to have phasing and you have to have a Quicksilver Flask. Otherwise, you're playing the game wrong, right? And I think they just want to eliminate those things where they're not choices, where you feel like pressure to have those things to play the game at a minimum. They're just restructuring the game in a way where you don't have to have them. So I'm happy for phasing to not be the standard anymore if the game accommodates that, right? Like, one of my biggest frustration points for me in the game is like early leveling, first time you get into the prison and you get stuck in the damn doorways because the stupid skeletons are standing everywhere and you don't have a movement skill. Well, unless you wake back, but then you only got
those ghouls are brutal too in those dungeons. They're really fast, and when they get haste, a magic set of ghouls.
Yeah, the new ones that they added when they reworked Act 1.
So
yeah,
I am perhaps even unhealthily optimistic about PoE 2. I find myself having to temper how excited and positive I am about how PoE 2 is going to take. Because if I seem too positive about it, everybody's like, GGG shill, Bale is blind. What an idiot. Look at how excited he is. But like, I don't know. Everything I see excites me.
I'm with you.
Yeah, what's getting you going? What's
just everything from animations to UI to the way that they're addressing like every single problem that I've seen. The only negative I have is everything we've been shown is slow. And that's the thing everyone else focuses on. And I'm not worried about that at all.
I agree.
I hope it stays slow.
But I don't think it's going to be that slow.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think it will be as PoE 1 fast, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as slow as the demo. I was asking Octavian actually about how the tree was working in ExileCon and the demos for gamescom and PAX West, because you couldn't open the passive tree. There was no access to it. Rishi was saying that they just didn't have it finished to the point that they were comfortable with people being able to see it.
You know, that's a template filler.
Yeah,
they just don't want it. They just don't want you to see it.
Yeah, I get why they're saying that, but I didn't realize that it was actually auto applying skills for you in the passive tree as you were leveling up, which I thought was actually cool. So you were getting something, but it was funny listening to Rishi and Octavian sort of counter back and forth about the size of the tree when it comes to PoE 2, where Rishi was saying it's going to be so much bigger, and Octavian's like, well, will it? And Rishi's like, well, there's way more passive skill points than what is in PoE 1. Granted, we don't have that center point for the what's that stupid class, Scion?
She's great.
Nah, she's awful. We don't have that center point for that, but Rishi said that there's way more passive points. And when you think about the fact that they're removing life from the tree, I'm so curious to see that tree.
Yeah,
That's
like,
gonna be
I also
weird.
Right?
find that hard to imagine because they said also that they want to have less specialized weapon clusters and stuff like that, like less niche stuff that you need to be in a specific region of the tree for a specific build. But they're trying to make it so that there's also I don't know. Did they say that there's masteries or like other tree customization in PoE 2?
I haven't heard anything specific about masteries, but I have to say that I want to see the passive tree more than I want to see ascendancies, more than I want to see anything else. I want to see that passive tree so bad.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that masteries are supposed to solve the problem of that localized availability of specific stats by
Right.
making it so that you can get the mastery from every cluster of that kind in every region of the tree. And I believe for PoE 2, they want to avoid having to do masteries by just designing the tree in the first place so that you don't feel you need to be in a specific region to do a specific thing. If I understood it correctly.
I have two assumptions. I think every character starts in the middle of the tree. And I think that whether or not the game releases with masteries and cluster jewels, that it's going to happen. I don't think they get rid of either of those two things.
That
But
would be a
who knows
very
if they
weird
start off with it.
decision, because that's like one of the core class identities in Path of Exile 1 is your starting point on the tree. And I mean pre-ascendancy, that was literally the only factor that changed, right? Like,
I think
other
you
than
still
3D
start in
model.
your own individual area. It looked to me like there was a giant circle and you started at a different point within that giant
It'd
circle.
be odd to me if they gave that up as like a unique selling point.
Some
would
of the
be
stuff that I
awful
paused
if you
from
started
ExileCon,
right in the center.
they showed one quick snippet of a tree, and it looked like there was 4 paths coming out from that starting point.
Yeah, so it would have to be 6. But you can have identity starting from the center, right? If there isn't a straight loop to connect around in a circle in the center, as long as you have to go out and move over,
And there
and
was,
you can
and
start
Jonathan
from
said
the
something
center,
about that.
Mhm.
right? You can start from the center,
Mhm.
but like this class starts here, and this class starts here, and this class starts here, right?
Yeah.
I would hate to have all of them start from one single point in the middle of the tree.
No,
Even
see,
though
that would be horrible. But
Yeah.
you can start from the middle without doing that.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
There's
wanna see the
something
tree.
Jonathan said when we were there where it was about the way the tree will be designed will allow you the opportunity to travel in multiple directions without feeling like you've stretched yourself thin. And maybe it wasn't when we were there. Yeah, I could easily be getting this mixed up with one of the other interviews. There's still 2 interviews with Jonathan and Chris that I haven't seen that came from other things that's on their YouTube channel. But there was something about they wanted the accessibility of certain clusters to be there. That's why the majority of them are going to be general, but there's still going to be one cluster of everything that's specific. So like they gave an example of an axe cluster and they gave an example of a defensive cluster that would be armor, but everything else is going to be a lot more generic. And they said that so that you didn't feel like you were stretched. I don't see that working if you have a different starting location like you currently have in the game.
Yeah, but then you may as well just make one single scion. I don't know, something about like starting from the center. No, fuck that. I like the feeling. I like the feeling. Tyler and I have talked about this quite a bit. I want the feeling where if I play a specific class and then ascendancy, that I feel like I'm getting a benefit to both of those choices, and not that somebody else that plays a different class or ascendancy. I just, for me, I like the idea that this ascendancy is going to grant me maybe a specific skill or a specific change to a skill or something where I feel like there was a reason I picked that ascendancy. Not that I could have been like, well, I played this build and I could pick 3 or 4 different ascendancies that work with it. I like the idea that going like that direction works for the build. So I seriously want to see that tree more than anything else for PoE 2.
I very much like that I can play in PoE anything as anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I like that. But I don't think I'd want to move away from this is easier at the beginning. Like this is like class identity is sometimes too much of a thing in this game right now, but also I like that it exists at a certain area. Like if you're going to play an Ignite build, your default answer is Elementalist right now. Right? And I like that that's a thing, but it doesn't have to be a thing. I
Mhm.
can make an Ignite Inquisitor. I can make an Ignite Trickster. I can make an Ignite Raider. I can make an Ignite anything I want. There is currently a very meta Ignite champion, which is on the wrong side of the tree. I like that I can do anything, but that it's sort of like not shoehorned, but like encouraged
easier
to be
option
here
if you
or
go this
here,
way.
right?
Mhm.
Like these are your defaults.
Yep.
I like there being defaults that make sense. I don't like it when you lock an entire archetype into
Right.
something.
Yep,
Right?
amen to that.
If you're
Yep.
playing this and you have to make this class, don't like that. Don't like that at all. It's actually why I don't like the new Guardian, by the way, because of the
Right.
first node with the big burning minion. Well, that's the only way to get that big burning minion. There is no other option. You must play. I don't like that.
That's
I hate
something
it.
though, like you think about it, and that's really I mean, now I'm limited. GGG blows me away with their ability to come up with something that I never thought of. That's not me like saying, I'm so smart, I can't believe they thought of something I didn't think of. It's just
Nobody
they're
thought that.
so creative. They're just so creative that when they come out with something, you're like, holy smokes, that's genius. Like, way to go. And now they're coming out, they're gonna have, what is it? It's 36. Yeah, 36
Yeah.
ascendancies, and they all need to be different. I want them
not
to
just
be
different
generic,
from each other, but also different from the 36 we already have.
right?
Right.
So, well, and the ones that we have currently, my assumption is that they're going to dramatically change anyway, because there's going to be there's no way that there's only going to be like one Necro style build and then one Guardian. Out of 36, there's 2 that benefit allies and minions.
Wait, they're saying that the old ascendancies, because
No,
maybe
they're
I'm
not
assumed
saying
they're
that.
not
That's my assumption, because
okay, because
they're
I think there's only
creating-
going to be the new ascendancies in PoE2. There's not going to be the old ascendancies, from my understanding.
No, there's going to be 36 ascendancies.
For PoE 2.
For PoE2. Because there's going to be 6 classes times 2.
Yeah.
Right? So there's going to be the Templar and the Druid for strength.
Are you combining the 2 together?
Yes. There's going to be the Sorceress and the Witch.
You're combining
Right.
PoE 1 and PoE 2?
Right, but they're talking about Path of Exile 2. That's how it's going to be. There are 2 classes per attribute allocation, I guess you could say, like int or int strength dex, pure dex and int. There's 2 classes for each of those, and each of those classes has 3 ascendancies. So the witch is going to be in the game. Whether they call one of the witch's ascendancies a necromancer, I don't know, but there are going to be 36 ascendancies in the game.
In
So-
PoE 2?
Yes.
Huh.
So it's one of those things where how do you make 30, even if I misinterpreted what they said at ExileCon 2, having 24 ascendancies is still insane. How do you differentiate one from the other to make them feel different without making them so generic that they're pointless? And unfortunately, I'm with you.
And without hard
Unfortunately, adding something like, you're looking at the Druid, they're getting shape-shifting, right? They're going to have a wolf, they're going to have a bear, probably a couple other ones, and you're probably not going to be able to get those outside of maybe like a bestiary mod or something that will allow you to do that. I hear you. Like, I'm on both sides of the fence. I get the disappointment, but I also get the unique aspect of it. I don't have a creative aspect of fixing it without.
I think
them
there's
doing it that
fine
way.
things about saying the druid gets like shape shifting, but not that like if I want to play a specific skill that I have to go this direction.
Like a skill gem.
Yeah.
Right. Something that could drop for everybody. Yeah. Like when like the Pathfinder was always for Herald of Agony or something like that. Right. And then when they had Herald of Agony just with the Guardian, I did not like that at all. And I think that's what you were saying, Baylor.
Yeah, I'll be fine with everything so long as I'm not like absolutely 100% locked. It's fine to me that something is the best for, right? That's fine.
It's not
This
the
is
only.
the best. It synergizes really well with this skill set. You play this archetype with this ascendancy because everything is synergistic and works really well. That's fine. I don't want you to force me. That's all.
Yes.
Like, don't make it. If I want to make something that's a worse Ignite build, and I'm going to do it as a raider because I want to, don't stop me. Right? Like sometimes I make disgustingly powerful, really strong builds. Sometimes I make weird meme shit. And I don't ever want to be stopped from making weird meme shit. That's
especially
like, right
Path of
now. My
Exile.
next PoE build is a bow elementalist, a full support bow elementalist. There's weird shit in this game, and I want to keep weird shit. That's what.
I'm still working on the idea of an RF Vortex character that's a raider. I just like it. You just run around, you hold your instant skill, pew, 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 and you're like phasing and running through everybody. And there's enough generic dot damage on the tree on the left or on the right side. You're fine. You're fine. I want to come back to this. I don't want to interrupt this, but I've been forgetting lots ever since the lawn was mentioned. Catmaster, when you put that message from Foog about the lawn crossover, does everybody see that, or was that just for us? Like what we're seeing is what goes on the video, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We're getting a straight up preview of what is on the channel, and I can highlight certain comments or like questions.
I just didn't want to interrupt Foog. Or I didn't want to interrupt for everyone, but thanks, Foog. You rock. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh,
so just so that you know how it works, there's a little chat here that only we can see. If we type,
hey,
that's private, but the screen we see is the same screen they see. Like the big box, everything.
See, this is what happens when you don't do stuff live.
This is what happens when you don't watch the Catmaster explanation video beforehand.
I did watch it.
No.
I saw that there was a private chat.
I didn't want to look at the. I didn't want to see what people were saying. I didn't want it to. I'd be distracted. I'd be reading, and I wouldn't hear what you guys are saying.
You guys, either of you have a lawn? I mean, we kind of have to ask.
I wish.
It's just our
I
thing.
wish. I wish.
Okay, listen. So my lawn.
So you have one?
The reason I don't care is because it's always been terrible, and there are bits of it where grass won't grow. And I tried for about a year to fix it, couldn't fix it, gave up, and decided I didn't care anymore.
Can I ask what you tried to fix it?
Catmaster's loving this.
We got some sort of weird fertilizer at Bunnings that we were suggested to use by the lady who worked at Bunnings.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried putting that down. Mm-hmm. I even bought I don't know what it's called, baby grass, and tried to smash that into the soil to make it grow there.
Seeds.
And then we also got
seeds. I love that.
Seed, that's the word. No, that's the word I was looking for.
Grass.
Dude, you played Harvest, right?
Baby grass, seed.
Baby grass.
I get it.
Okay, look, I forget words sometimes.
So you pick up all your baby crafts.
Tyler's on there. I get it.
Yeah, and then we also tried these little orbs of clearness that would absorb tons of water to try and make sure that it got like watered correctly. Cool. Little weird squishy orbs that were you place you like all over it, and then you water it, and it like holds water for a while and like lets. It's supposed to make it like be watered better, because like here it sometimes floods and then sometimes droughts, and that is just the way it always is. So we tried that as well, and there are just like areas and they stay brown and gross, and then in the middle there's no lawn, and I can't fix it, and there's nothing I've been able to do. So eventually I gave up.
What's your weather like where you live? Like, what is the typical seasons like?
I can only tell you Celsius.
No, we do Celsius.
That's
We're
us.
Canadian, so that's us. Love it.
Fantastic.
Don't give me that.
All right.
Are you Celsius, Cat? No, Cat. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the world is Celsius. Metric system is where it's at in the scientific community.
Here,
agreed.
Cold. It sometimes gets down to 8 to 12 at night, like 15 in the day. That lasts about a month or two.
Okay,
at most, closer to a month.
Yeah,
that's like there's like this 1 month of cold here.
Any rain during that time, or
trying to remember when that is. Usually no. Usually cold and drought are at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then for probably 8 months out of the year, it is what I would consider like the healthy temperature here, which is Night time's like 22. Daytime's like 30, 32.
Humid or dry or what?
Usually pretty dry.
Wow.
It's
Usually
tough when
pretty
you don't
dry.
have a steady like
Yeah, you'd have
rain
to water
season,
a
It's
lot.
really tough. Yeah, it's
And then there's the flood season every month.
Every month?
Which is, well, sorry, every
month?
year.
Oh,
Every year you've got flood season here, which is usually temperatures be like 26 at night, up to 40 during the day, and just flooding, just like flash flooding constant all the time. It's raining and it's raining more. And you're out with like sandbags trying to bag places up. And
wow.
Wow.
yeah, that's the pretty standard year here.
that's a stressful year.
Yeah. So I don't know how you save a lawn under those conditions,
So
but people do it.
yes.
It takes a lot of effort. A lot of effort.
There's a specific seed that's specific to like your climate. It's called a zoysia. It's a
Obviously.
specific type of seed that is very good for like a drought and like for both sides where it can withstand a lot of heat and a lot of cooling.
Is it the kind of lawn that when you when you step on it barefooted, it cuts your?
No, it feels
cuts your
it's
toes?
very nice. It's a really nice green. It's for more of your southern hemisphere style climate, but it's zoysia. It's a Zeto, I don't know, ZOYSIA or something, but it is actually pretty good for your area, but it might be something where just check out.
So I'll tell you the thing I was considering if I was ever going to go back to trying to get my lawn to be good.
Concrete.
I was considering I was considering getting rid of grass entirely
Mhm.
Yeah.
And going
and
for
building clovers.
clovers is
Cool.
easy too. Yep.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because
Feel nice on the
clovers,
feet.
People do that here too.
they're really nice on your feet, apparently,
And easy.
and they look really, really different.
Yeah, but
And
they
I
flower
like
and they
that.
then they attract bees and bumblebees and all that.
Oh, bees are fine. Bees never hurt anyone.
Until you step on them.
Well, don't do that.
Clovers look decent. I struggle with it. I would probably go with like a turf before I go with clovers, but I have seen some clover lawns and they're very green.
Yeah.
They look nice and so much less.
Not a lot
maintenance,
of
too.
work either. Mhm.
Yeah, see, the thing that attracted me, that's what attracted
the
me
less-
to the
the
idea
less
so
work.
much. It's like, that's so much less work.
Keep us
And that's
posted.
what I
Just
want.
start
I want the
clovers in that
minimal-
one spot.
Yeah,
Start
see how
clovers
they
in that
grow.
one spot that you can't grow and just watch it spread and monopolize your lawn. Keep us posted. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I want to know.
Step by step with Baylor
Yeah.
and Kat.
Ah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I had to get grass
Clovers.
in there at some point. We would get yelled at if we didn't.
honestly, we've already been asked a few times in chat. I know you were saying you don't.
I'm not watching.
Tyler doesn't have
no.
chat up. Did Tagz have chat up?
I don't have chat up. No.
Okay, yeah.
It was easier
I'm-
for me because we don't do live stuff. So if I hear people
Yeah.
being like, "Oh, he's an idiot," I'd be like, "No, I'm not."
I'm gonna be honest.
Stupid, you're
if
stupid.
If I ever am playing games without streaming, which is rare,
Yeah.
I still find myself spending 30 or 40% of my time going,
Looking to the
what are people
side.
saying? Wait, no one's saying anything. And then this like horrible feeling happens where they're like, have I not been entertaining for the last half an hour? Wait a minute, you're not live, idiot. No one's here because you're not live. Jesus. Like that happens every time I play
Yeah.
games off stream.
Oh, you're gonna
That's
like for the
awesome.
rest of your life be just permanently scarred to be looking to the left or whatever side it is you
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Brain
Kat, you were
damage.
saying you don't have a lawn?
Yeah, I don't have a garden. Like, I mean, yeah, there is a lawn outside, but it's not mine to take care of. It's like I live in a house with a lot of other parties, and we all pay horrendous fees every year for our caretaker
Somebody
to
take
do
care of
that
it.
sort of
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, they're so nice.
What's
Such
your
nice
weather like
person.
there?
Mild, but just standard. I mean, I don't know what's standard, but like I don't know. Like in the winters, sometimes we get some minus degrees, but usually not. Like somewhere around, hovering around 0 Celsius. And then in the summers, like, what was our warmest day? I think was 38 degrees or something like that. And
Is it
It's just
humid or
very
dry
mild.
there when it's hot?
I can't decide. Probably somewhere in the middle. Probably on the normal side. Like I'd say like 60% humidity, Sometimes, you get this mounting humidity over a couple of days, and you get like a nice thunderstorm. Everything releases, and then it's I guess below 50 again. But
I saw you got a new bike.
yeah, oh, it's such a
That's fun.
treat. It's so good. Oh man, I've been getting into biking a lot this year because someone gifted me their old bike that's been sitting on an attic. It was like they bought the bike from a hardware shop, like how hardware shops or supermarkets or I guess Walmart or something like that. They sell like this really untypical thing, like once a year or twice a year. They have like a mountain bike or a computer system or like a tent or is there some high-tech stuff. And yeah, my mom got it gifted and it was sitting on her attic after she left Germany because my mom moved and I'm going way too far, but basically I got this bike from my mom. I got back into biking this year, and then like last week I went to the blood donation, and then from the blood donation to here I have to go downhill and uphill again. And after downhill, there wasn't a whole lot of uphill to break, but during the downhill part, I was like, I'm having fun. I'm going hard on this bike. I'm going as hard as possible. But then I didn't have much uphill portion to break, right? And somehow it was also like gravel. So even if I would have been able to pull off like a full brake situation, the bike would have still like slithered over the gravel. And I went straight into a barbed wire fence that was surrounding like a cow.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Wait, you hit barbed wire?
Yeah, like I was like kind of tangled up in it a little bit with one leg, and I needed like a couple minutes to free myself. And that was the moment, right? That was the drop that made the barrel spill, or what is the proverb that I'm looking at? Anyway, I went to town to the bike shop. Yeah, the straw that broke the camel's back.
I like the barrel spilled or whatever you said. That's I like that one.
In German, the straw that broke the camel's back is the drop that made the barrel flow over.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Der Tropfen, der das Fass zum Überlaufen bringt.
Oh, sounds like
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, figure of speech. It's funny. It's funny. Like these things. Yeah.
So you got a new bike?
Catches the worm, right?
And we don't even have camels. We have barrels.
Yeah. Why we even talk about camels when we don't have
all that straw I need a whole day? Anyway,
to cut a long story short, I brought my bike to the bike shop, which I had been planning to do. I wanted to invest like $50 to $100 into my bike, get like the brakes overhauled and everything. And when that happened, I was like, no, that's happening now. I'm getting this bike in the best possible state for my own sake, right? And I went to the bike shop, and I was very disappointed. But the guy looked at the bike, and was like, "There's some fundamental flaws in this thing. I wouldn't invest any money into it. Dude, just take like $150 and get a new bike secondhand from someone, because you'll be much happier with that than like pouring money into this bottomless pit of a bike." And I was really down for half a day, and then I looked at like what secondhand bikes are available, and I found like a super good, somewhere in between racing and mountain bike, Cube Air something white from like 5 years ago, and the guy had redone everything in February this year, and then only used the bike to bring his children to kindergarten and to bike 1 kilometer to work every day throughout the summer. So the bike was like completely fine, right? Like everything new brakes, new chain, new gears and all that. And it's such a treat. That's I bought it in a city like 40 kilometers away. Like I went there with the train, and I just jumped on the bike and biked back all the 40 kilometers home.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Good for
you. Like a nice 2-hour tour. And yeah, been biking a lot since. Like
that's awesome.
Cool.
How did we get to bikes from lawns?
Well, I interrupted Path of Exile 2 to thank Foog for the message. Fault. And it's so Foog.
Yeah, and then you felt bad about me not having to say anything and not giving any input on the lawn care. So you were like, Catmaster, you also have something to talk about. Here, have your bike section.
While we're on a whole bunch of tangents,
let's do it. What do you got?
A while back, right near the beginning, Tagz, you were saying you went to the first ExileCon with your kid, and that they were on a Discord that was like figuring out a whole bunch of like events to go to or places to be. Yeah, that's mine.
Oh, get out.
I run the community PoE Discord. I took my name off it so that people who hated me would still join and be able to find events.
Okay,
I'm
loving
still the
haters.
admin of that server. I just removed my the look of admin, so it doesn't look like I've been running
Oh,
it.
that's awesome.
So
I didn't
that
know
people
that.
who hated me wouldn't avoid the server, because I wanted everyone to
who
be
could
able to
hate you?
find things,
Come on.
whether they
Did they-
liked me or not.
Did people use that for PoE or ExileCon 2 as well?
Mhm.
Oh,
I
that's
refreshed
so
the whole
cool.
thing, redid the whole thing as well. Everything was happening. Like PoE had like an official one, but it's shit.
Yep. I think this one had like yours. I remember him showing it to me, and it had like different groups for different people or
Mhm.
streamers or whatever.
I got different channels for every single streamer that
Oh,
attended.
that's so cool. He showed it to me.
Different
I remember like
chats with
we were in when we
Yeah.
were in ExileCon, I rented a house while we were there. And I think it was like the second or third night. It was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And we were at the house, and he came up to me. He's like, "Oh, there's this blah, 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 get together, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "I am not leaving this fucking house. If you want to go, you go." And he had a
ton of
blast.
work into that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Discord,
That's so cool
that people
for you.
would like be able to find groups of people to do anything with while they were there.
He used it.
And yeah, it was really good.
It was actually beneficial for me because at that point I had already met Tarky, and my son was going to some group thing that he was doing, and I'd messaged Tarky because he had already messaged me privately. I was like, "Hey, just don't let my son die. You know who he is." And they hung out, which was awesome. But that's so cool that was your thing. It was he loved it. He used it the whole time we were there. I just didn't know what he was talking about.
It was actually that Discord was used more this ExileCon by the GGG people than the GGG one was.
Really?
I even made like a role for them, but with no admin permissions at all.
Mhm.
Because I actually offered them some admin positions. I was like, I'll give everyone who works there admin if you guys need it or want it for anything. And they were just like resoundingly like, we'll take a role so that people like know when we talk it is us, but we don't want any permissions, because if we take permissions, then it starts to look like
the problem.
we're
running it.
Like we're like running a community run thing, and they're like, we don't want to be running community run things. Community projects shouldn't
So much
have to
better
do with
when
us.
it's like grassroots and coming from the actual
and so they
players.
were like, we'll take a role in the way of it just gives us a different color and like allows us to identify ourselves as staff when we're talking, but we don't want any permissions or anything on how to run it or like anything like that. They're like, we don't want like a private area, nothing. Just we'll take just a role that gives us a unique color that says we're staff. That's it. And I was like,
that's
"All right,
awesome.
that's
Good
cool."
for you, man. I can't speak from PoE 2 or from ExileCon 2, but from ExileCon 1, my son used it exclusively. I saw lots of pictures on his phone from that thing, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing. Just go and have a good time. Leave me alone.
Is there a reason neither of you made it to this one that just happened?
So Tyler and I talked about, so my son and I, he's moved out doing his own thing, so that wasn't going to happen. Tyler and I had talked about it, but it wasn't feasible for me with regards to my just personal life. I had my wedding anniversary, my wife's birthday, and it's not cheap like to fly there from Canada. And that was pretty much it, Ty. Like it basically just came down to it didn't work great for my schedule. It would be a very tough conversation for me to have with my wife to be like, yeah, we could do our anniversary. Although she had her cousin come down while it was that timing. So maybe it could have worked, but it was like, it's quite expensive. And then you're talking about staying down there, and it would have been cool to go, but I'm hoping maybe eventually they start to like find a middle ground, because I swear to God, you guys are like the furthest away from everyone in the world.
I hope they never do. I hope they keep
I know,
it right.
I'm sure you do.
You had no idea. Like, I've been a massive nerd my whole life. Every event for anything ever is 10 to 18 hours away.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Every single thing for anything ever is 10 to 18 hours away. This is the first time I've had something I could attend, like a real life event that I could attend. Mm-hmm. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes on a plane. That's the closest to anything has ever been in my life.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm so happy, but I hope they stay there forever. I know that might be selfish.
It is nice though. It's true.
But also like everything for every game, every convention, everything is 10 to 18 hours away. I'm just so happy to have something close.
That's why I went to PAX.
As long as they keep coming to Gamescom,
Mhm.
then I'm completely happy. I like that their house own convention is something that they host themselves, where they're really actively involved. They don't give that into like a third party, right? That they're here, organize this for us.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a little bit outsourcing with the media production for the live stream and all that, which is why we had
It was
the
very good.
professional appearance this time
Mhm.
around. But I really like that they're doing their own convention in their own sort of space, right, where they feel at home and can be proper hosts, as opposed to renting out like
Mm.
a place
Some
somewhere
spot.
in Europe or in the States, right? And they don't really know how things are, and they have to give it out of their own hands. And
Well,
like,
and the fact is, like, New Zealand is beautiful. It's so
Oh, yeah.
like when I went there with my son, we spent a lot of time traveling and looking, like ExileCon was when I had agreed to him to go, even though I was the big PoE player, I was like, I'm not going there for ExileCon. If we're gonna travel whatever 17, 18 hours, I have to experience the country a little bit. So we did a lot of sightseeing. Beautiful. Like I'm gonna go back another time with my wife. It's such a beautiful country. So it is nice in that sense. It's just it's so far away.
Yeah.
The
It's
one
the same. Oh, go ahead. You do your thing.
the one other thing is I don't know how much of this happened this time, but I know it happened last time, and I'm sure it happened this time, but without any confirmation. There's a lot of like back and forward to the office. I remember in the first time that I was there, one of them, I forget who because my memory is just trash, the worst you've ever seen. But one of the like videos that they showed us on the Saturday wasn't finished until like 2 a.m. on the Saturday. Somebody was at the office working on
Wow.
it, and then had to like package it, make it all ready, and then give it to people. Like put it somewhere for people in the morning to pick up from the office on the way to the convention, and then watch it and make sure everything was right to then show us that same day.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that was happening, like back and
Which
forth
would
to the
never
office to
happen if
get
you
this.
went somewhere
Which,
else.
yeah, if you do that outside of your hometown where your base is, it becomes a lot. It's not impossible to get something new
you
done.
just do it all
Like, the
via
internet
Google Drive.
exists, right? But
Yeah.
like,
Well,
it
but you
becomes a
talk
lot more difficult.
and expensive. I mean, they have
Yeah.
their staff that are doing these like characters for the card game to try and do that if you're doing it in Europe or somewhere in the States to transfer all of your staff to that place. Your
Oh,
cost
yeah.
goes up
'Cause then you have to, like,
monstrously.
If you're doing that as a company, you have to pay for all the people you need to fly over. You have to put
Plus
them in
their
hotels and pay for all
hotels
of that.
and their
You
insurance.
can't put
which
them
would
in
be-
roach motels. Like, they have to be nice-ish places. You don't have to go 5-star for your staff. But you
Still,
can't go 2-star either. Like, you
Mm-mm.
have to
It
pick
would
a
be
pretty
expensive.
decent place, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's never leaving New Zealand. For us, the same thing. It's just a family financial matter, right? Like, I'm not going to go by myself, and I'm not going to fly all the way there for that crazy price and then only show up for ExileCon. I'm going to show up and make the most of my money, so I'm going to stay for the week, whatever it is. And I'm not going to spend, as a family of 4, I'm not going to spend all that money just on me. So, and then the kids are at an age where it's like, well, I wait 5 years and they can appreciate a trip just like that. You know what I mean? And so it's not like, we're able to do those trips once or twice a year anyway. So if you're going to do a trip like that, yeah. So
Fair enough.
it's we'll go to ExileCon 12, I think.
12.
Yeah, in a few more years.
If they stay
Hey.
this far apart, I think I'll be dead by the time ExileCon 12 comes out.
I hope they
4
do
years
another one.
apart. I don't know if I can do that 11 more times.
I hope they don't spread them out as far. I hope they become more common so that when they do one, we don't have the expectations that I feel like I had going into ExileCon 2.
Heartbroken this
Yeah,
time around. I
was
felt
a
so
little
bad
bit-
for them, but
Yeah.
I felt like I
agree.
had a bit of an unfair expectation of what was going to happen at ExileCon 2 that didn't happen. Just my own
Wait,
fault.
can we talk about that? Because
we can. But can we take a group pee break first?
Well, why
Let's
don't you
just
go?
all go at the same time, so I don't miss anything that we're talking about. Okay,
I'll
great
fill you in.
idea. Excellent.
you don't have,
I'll be
you
right
don't
back.
have wireless headphones.
Please don't take his wireless
What do
headphones.
you-
He's done that before. You do not want that.
Well,
to
that's
happen.
because you guys always make fun of me when we're playing Formula One. So yeah, I'm gonna make sure that you can hear me. Anyway,
Yeah, it's
I'll be right back.
awful. You hear
Well,
him
I mean,
pee and he's like,
What do you guys think I'm doing when I mute my camera and my microphone?
at least you mute your microphone. He doesn't do that. For ExileCon 2, I was so pumped for it, but I think I had unfair expectations. Oh, I don't know if they were unfair. The thing was, we had gone into ExileCon 1 with no expectations, like at all. ExileCon 1 was just like, holy shit, they're doing a convention for this indie-ish game that we love. That's so cool. And then we're there and it's this announcement for ExileCon 2. And the whole place just goes wild, and it was so crazy and it was so fun. And then ExileCon 2 gets announced. There's obviously a bit of an expectation because they've never done anything else since ExileCon 1. And then for us personally, people have like seriously gone off on us. They don't like the fact that I say this, but for me, it's true. Chris making a comment about you want to leave as soon as ExileCon 2 is over. For me, that was a big deal. I think it was a big mistake on his end, but I also, that held a bit of weight for me. And so when you tell people, hey, you don't want to stick around, do your traveling beforehand. First off, Chris takes a 2.5-hour flight. No, he takes no flight. He's in New Zealand. Even the people in Australia, which are the closest humans in the world to New Zealand, take a 2.5-hour flight. Every single other human being that comes to that place takes a 12+ hour trip to get there. I had a problem with the idea of saying, come home as soon as it's done. If I'm
Wash
traveling
my
to
hands.
New Zealand,
Yes,
nice
I did.
job.
Lavender
hopefully.
and Shay.
I just have an issue. I had an issue with the idea of like telling people to rush home if there wasn't anything big happening after ExileCon 2. And while ExileCon 2 was very fun, Tyler and I watched it together at home. At my place, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. We did our recordings. It was a good time. We had a good time, but there was never anything during ExileCon 2 that was like, oh my god.
A reason that you had to head home.
Right. And so that's where I had a bit of a problem with ExileCon 2. I wish that this had been ExileCon 3 or that ExileCon 2 had been pushed like 6 to 8 months forward. And that there was like, hey, June 2024, we're out and we're only like 3 months away or whatever it was. Or that there had already been an ExileCon 2, which had set the precedent of like, hey, this is our thing. We like to do a convention for our game. And if people can come, they can come. And it's not always some big announcement like ExileCon 1 had been. And so that's where I felt a little bit of a disappointment with the idea. And I really did struggle with it. Like people got really mad at me for bringing it up, but I felt like it was unfair to tell people to rush home afterwards when there was literally nothing. Trails of the Ancients or whatever this league is called. It was never, first off, it wasn't ready as soon as the league ended, as soon as ExileCon 2 ended. It was like 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And as great as I like it, and I have my issues with the league, but as good as it is, leave another country? No. It's not good enough to leave another country to go play. So that was my feeling towards ExileCon 2.
And I don't know if you said this while I was gone, but Justin also brought up a point that it didn't have the big news. Like it was an update, like the first thing they showed was just them playing the game. You know what I mean? There wasn't a big reveal about the game. It was just, and sure, we learned lots about some of the small things that interest the super nerds of Path of Exile, and that's what ExileCon is. We're excited about it, and so it is for us. But there wasn't a big news that came from the event, and that we're used to Twitch for the small stuff, and we're used to ExileCon for the big stuff. But they have one. So that's us putting that precedent on them after only one previous ExileCon.
Also, for me, the best thing about ExileCon isn't even the convention. I loved the convention. I was still super happy with it. But that's not the best part about it. The best part is being there.
Yeah,
like
totally.
The best part is you're surrounded by
just go into it.
You guys get to do this all the time. I never, ever get to nerd out in person about PoE to another single human being at all. And I think that's most people's experience in person, is that there is no one to sit down and talk to and get excited about PoE. There's no one that all of that happens on the internet. All of it.
Totally.
And it's very rare to get that opportunity. So for me, that's the biggest part of it is just being surrounded by PoE nerds.
Everybody that loves PoE. We had that conversation in one of our episodes, and we said that on Discord too. Like after I did my little, people got on me about it. I was like, I'm not trying to take away from it. The convention itself is incredible. It is one of the most fun things. If you are a PoE nerd, the actual environment is, you can't beat it. It's so good. And yeah, that, I mean, I can tell you my son, who's like whatever 21 22 now, still will talk about the fact that he was surrounded by, I mean, he knew who some of the other people were, but just the fact that he was around PoE people and PoE streamers, and it was all PoE, the GGG staff, like that was mind-blowing to him.
And every single person that we've heard from that went to this most recent convention, despite the fact the air went out of the room when the beta announcement came, like that's what we're all waiting for after this initial Jonathan keynote, and then like just all the air leaves when it's the date's so far away. Despite that, which is what everybody was going to hear, what's the date going to be? Every single person that we heard from that went absolutely loved their time. The entire experience was great, and the negative news based on their expectations was quickly removed with was quickly replaced with an amazing experience. So I'm very happy for everybody that went, for sure.
It's interesting that you brought this up because I had originally, right after ExileCon, I'd been planning to make a video about my disappointment, and I held back on it because something that we get a lot on the podcast is that people get the impression that we don't really like Path of Exile because we always talk about the things that we don't like about it, because we like to criticize what we think is annoying us because we play it so much. Like we take all the good things for granted, so we don't talk about them anymore. And we only talk about our negative feedback. And in the same way, I didn't want, because I've been struggling with YouTube recently, right? I have a lot of videos that don't break good numbers. Like the podcast is still doing well, but like as far as regular talking videos or build videos go, like somehow my channel doesn't promote them properly or doesn't find the right audience for them, or maybe they're not good for any audience. What I'm trying to say is I didn't want my next breakout video, the next video that does well, to be the one where I shit on how I didn't like ExileCon, right? And I did write the entire script, but I never wrote the video. And I'm asking myself, would it have been different if I had been there in person? Because it would have been such an overwhelmingly positive experience to be around all the people. But my disappointment largely stems from the fact that over the past couple of years, GGG have built up this reputation of always exceeding expectations, right? When we expected Act 5, we got Act 5 through 10 announced. Yeah. And when we expected just a simple endgame expansion, we got our minds blown with Conquerors. We got our minds blown with Echoes of the Atlas and all that. Right? They always go the extra mile and do the things that people don't expect, that really blow our minds. And then this ExileCon was very, very light on mind-blowing reveals. I did have my mind blown though by the automatic weapon swap stuff, and being able to allocate a tree based on your weapon swap, and telling the game which of the skills you want to use with which weapon set and which version of your tree. That is super cool. And I'm sure there's tons of things in PoE 2 that are of that level of customizability and complexity, but they're just not ready to talk about yet.
Yeah. And I think it's totally fine to have those reservations. And if your numbers fluctuate because you have reservations about one thing, whether it's Path of Exile 1 or 2, I'd post it anyway. It's when you have a passionate creator and somebody that everybody knows that you love the game or you want to love the game. Sometimes you go through
you'd like to think that, but I don't want people to get the wrong impression.
But you know what? It's okay to have those moments in those videos where you're just I'm just pissed. I'm really bummed, I'm really hyped for this. And it's okay to have, you're still hyped. It's just coming from a disappointment because you were that excited and you still are. But it's just the news you wanted isn't there yet. I have the same kind of thing. For me, when we were talking with, I forget which one at PAX, the default filter is still going to be their default filter and nothing's going to be changing. And right now, and this is no offense to the individual that does the default filter at GGG, it's the worst filter out there. You can't use it. It's just there's way too much that shows. Now, that's not their fault. That's how the game is made, right? You have normal, magic, rare, and unique items, all of one base type, but you have 600 base types. And so now when I hear, like, I'm crazy excited for Path of Exile 2, but when I hear that there's 600 new items, I'm excited. But my favorite game in Path of Exile is making a filter. That's my favorite thing to do in this game. It is my absolute favorite thing. I am in. Shut your face, Justin. It is the best. Okay, it is awesome.
Your favorite game is Filter Blade?
Forever. I love.
No, not Filter Blade.
You're just writing it from scratch.
That's the best part. That's the best part. Yeah. You bet. No, hey, whoa. Okay, come on. Who doesn't have the Shaper going Chaos Orb every time a Chaos Orb drops?
That's fine.
Come on. So anyway, it's in the game though. That's a default thing. The Shaper voice for those, like when a Divine Orb drops and they have that thing, it's awesome because that means I can have it on console too. It's not like,
there's like 15 minutes of him talking with Chris and Octavian each about filters,
and it was the best moment of my life.
I'm fine with that. Filters are amazing.
He loved it. He was all over it.
But when I hear that 600 new items no longer have implicits, that's exciting as a fan, but it's terrifying as a filter creator. Because, like, for example, right now you have, let's use, this one's a really small scale to work with, but let's use can you still hear me okay? I had to move this away because I'm talking with my hands. But minion wands, right? You have the calling wand, convening wand, and convoking wand. Yep. Right? There's 3. They have different. Justin's like, go get your drink, Justin. Just get out of here. Nobody cares. Shut your face. Go take like a massive long dump. I'll be an hour.
Do your thing, buddy.
But anyway, like you have these, and the implicit is the same except at different values, right? So at some point, unless you're scared about the attribute value of how much intelligence it requires, you're going to be wanting the convoking wand, right? Because the game has 3 separate base types for one item, people in Filterland, they're desperate to cut out crap. They're desperately trying to. I need to see less. I know I'm cutting out 1,030% movement speed boots, but I have to cut something out. So you do it based on implicits, or with stuff that doesn't have implicits, you do it based on their defensive values or their attack values or their attack speed. You find something to make, okay, this is the best, I can cut the rest. And so when you use the minion wands as an example, at some point, unless you care about I love your place. When you have this is what he does when I talk filters. You're such a dick. But anyway, I'm just picturing you two playing the same piano song. But you're probably only going to show convoking wands. You guys are such dicks. When I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. My point is you're using the implicit to try and make the filter worthwhile. That's your primary thing, to cut crap and show something, right? But when you get rid of the implicit, now you have 600 items. As a fan, I'm stoked. As somebody who sees what the default filter is like, I'm terrified. Like, they're fine with the default filter. And now, like, how are you going to differentiate the difference between all these different items? And, like, are they changing drop rates? I hope so. But then what do you do? Like, I don't know. It's a big conversation. So my point, Catmaster, is that that is so disgusting. He got AI to do that picture, and he's put it on like a mug.
I had questions about how that picture was done, but I had my theory was different.
But like, I have my reservations as well about Path of Exile 1 mentality going into Path of Exile 2, but it doesn't change how excited I am. That was my long-winded point.
I have something. Yeah, we'll go for it.
I can assuage the worry about filters right now. As a avid filter creator that spends way too long making filters and shares them to thousands and thousands of people, we're going to approach filters the same way, whether they have implicits or not. We're still going to be able to hide stuff, because at least for me, or the way I run my filters, is the perfect amount of items for your filter is that your inventory never fills in one map, or at least doesn't regularly. Like, if I happen to hit like a loot goblin and a bunch of 6 links or 6 sockets pop out, and this one time, fine. Okay, but if generally speaking,
Imagine Balor picking up 6 sockets.
I do it on day 1 and 2. But anyway, generally speaking, you just trim everything until you don't have to leave a single map, right? You don't have to go back in multiple times. We're already right now trimming stuff that would make it if it was just based on what's the best of each individual type. So if they get rid of all of the implicits, realistically, in the end, it's not going to matter. We're still going to decide this is too much loot. These have to go. Like
Well,
it's just going to be the same process.
To an extent, but it depends.
much
If you're
less
making your filter for yourself, that makes sense. But if you have a community filter where you're making it for everybody, you can't really decide what's valuable to someone else, and you still need a way to trim that, right?
Sure, I can. I do it already. Not only do I already decide what's valuable for other people, not only do I already do that, I don't even keep a changelog. And when people ask me what is on or what isn't on your filter, I tell them that the only thing that I give them in a way of a changelog is just trust me, bro.
Play.
Just put the filter on and trust me. And if you can't, don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you feel like you can't trust me on my filter,
Pick a
don't
different
use
one.
it. Use another one. That's not my problem. I'm not keeping a changelog. It's too much work. I don't want to.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. What were you going to say, Catmaster, at the beginning?
I was saying I have like a mildly tangentially related topic. That is me having mixed feelings about the trifecta of things going away. You know how it's like an ARPG trope, like that goes back to Diablo, I believe, where like every enemy that you encounter in normal difficulty also spawns in a harder version with a different color variation and a different name in the next difficulty and afterwards. In the same way, Path of Exile has, like you said, the calling and the convoking and the other one, right? They all have the same 2D art. They have the same principle. They have the same kind of implicit, slightly different numerical values. And with PoE 2, that's going away, right? They're not reusing enemies in the same way, maybe in maps, right? That they're slightly recoloring, rescaling enemies, or giving them slightly different abilities. Certainly with elite mechanics, right? They will do that. Now the sun's going away. What a bastard. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. Obviously, I'm happy that everything will have its own individual art, 2D art, right? That you don't have like 3 different base types that use the same 2D art where you have to read the name. But then at the same time, I'm kind of, nostalgic about that trope of things reappearing in higher variations later on again.
I would still love to see, I know this is maybe just me feeling this way, but I would love to see where there was just a base item that was the same all through everywhere, and there was a new currency that re-rolled the implicit. I just think it'd be fun to have a currency that would allow me to re-roll the implicit on an item. I don't know how that would work with regards to the art of a weapon, but I just think it would take away from this need of having like a billion base types to having a few base types. What's that?
Like Eldritch Orbs?
Oh, well, I mean,
way.
then you're talking about like axes that have crit, or you have like different base types that have their own implicit outside of the Eldritch roll.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to have an item that has instead, or even like what's it, golden plate or whatever, the one that has like the elemental resists on it. Just having an item that would allow you to roll the implicit on a chess piece or a weapon or whatever.
But then item bases would have to have more identity. But I think right now the implicit.
Well, but they wouldn't. You could have the item base where it was just a base, and then
it's like all that drops is a one-handed axe.
Is what changes that maybe art style or whatever it is of that item.
I see, right.
I think when they talk about 600 base types for PoE 2, I just go like, fuck. Like, I need 4. 600 is insane. 600 is banana. I mean, obviously I'm being sarcastic with 4, but like 600? Who thinks of 600? That's insane.
That's exciting, but then I start thinking about screen clutter, and I'm like, oh man, like how when skills are what roll randomly on that item, right, as that implicit, that's both exciting and terrifying. Like, how do you know when you, like, I assume identifying an item is still going to exist, so you're not going to be able to filter based on an item. Like you can't just be, okay, movement speed boosts from 25% movement speed up. Only show me those. Like you're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to only be able to filter based on class, base type, and implicit. So it's just scary. It's scary, and I'm sure that they've thought of it. I sure hope they've thought of it. But I'm it's one of those things that I'm thinking about because they haven't said anything yet.
In the end, I'm going to lean on NeverSync. Just give me that filter blade to just click on basic, and I'll work my way up.
Oh yeah, I used to do all the manual editing of my filters. They used to be text based.
Mm-hmm.
I never touch the text anymore.
We had a conversation actually with both Octavian and Chris. Well, Tyler did because he's a nerd about filters, but about the idea of why the default filter is not open. When you go to the text-based version of editing a filter, you're just left with an empty box. And why the default is not actually what's in that empty box, allowing you to start editing the default filter. And both of them said, should be like that.
I thought it was.
It's not.
No, it's an oversight.
Both of them thought it was too. So hopefully that will get changed. But it is tough because if you go in to try and create your own filter, you are left with an empty box to start creating.
Which nowadays is probably less important because I feel like you start from NeverSync filters.
Yeah, I think most people do as well. Mm-hmm. If you know, if you're aware to look into that.
His organizational system's very unique though, because
the default's not NeverSync.
But aren't you already? I thought even the consoles had NeverSync filters on them now.
I feel like the console might, but I don't think PC
they do.
does.
You can go down and drop down and select them. Yes.
PC though? I don't think PC has
PC,
them,
no, you have to download it on your own.
Okay.
But part of that drop down list on Xbox anyway it's there.
Right. So it's not.
I don't think they're there on PlayStation because my console filters they're much higher on the ladder in PlayStation land, so I don't think they're there natively in Sony land, but I can't confirm that. I don't have a PlayStation.
So when we treat that like a default on PC, we're treating it like a default because we've played and we know that is like the default, but it's not actually there.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is for PC, but I mean, granted, most people do use some form of NeverSync or whatever, but when one of the things we talked with Rory about when we were chatting at PAX West is I was really surprised. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much. This is going too long. Sorry.
You're boring the crap.
I did not think we were going to last 2 hours. I wasn't figuring how Tyler and I were going to actually talk for that.
Yeah, we're closing on the 3 hours now.
Sorry.
I don't want to hold you here too long, so like we're going to round things off soon. But feel free to elaborate at length what you wanted to say.
I just wanted to bring up that when we talked with Rory and Jonathan about PAX West, I don't know what it was like at Gamescom, although it sounded like it was pretty similar, but I was really surprised at the percentage of users that were coming and standing in this like 2-hour long lineup that had never played Path of Exile before. Really surprised me because I love Path of Exile. No chance I was standing in a 2-hour line to play the demo. We just hung out with them. Yeah, that's what they said. Rishi was showing me pictures of Gamescom, and I was like, I would kill myself. I'd be out of there in a heartbeat. It was insane. The pictures he showed me from there were just bananas. Like, just so many people. But one of the things that Rory was saying that they realized how, and I think Octavian actually talked about it in our 207 episode, but realizing how much they needed to tutorialize that they hadn't maybe thought of, where a new player coming in wouldn't understand what they were doing and they needed to plan their tutorials around trying to teach a new player coming in what they would need to do, which Tyler and I have talked at length over the years about our feeling that the help section was really, really bad. Their tutorial section was not great for a brand new player. It works fine for a relatively experienced player, or most of us just hit the skip tutorial button when we start up. But the filter is like actually a big part of that. Like there's nothing in there that really tells a player who I assume it's a very high percentage play on PC that the default filter is just trash. And that's what you're playing with when you go into the demo, when they were playing the ExileCon, the ExileCon 2, when they were playing the PAX West and the whatever. the filter was awful. We watched a guy
Oh, it
play
was
in the demo.
terrible.
Oh, it was brutal. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with regards to trying to tutorialize more of the game to teach a new player coming in. Especially when they talk about this idea of like getting Lost Ark numbers when PoE 2 launches, and they want to have this huge push. I always liked PoE because it didn't cater to the new person. It will always cater to the more hardcore player that wanted to learn the game. I think PoE has shifted over the years away from that idea of like, hey, if you're a hardcore ARPG, you're going to figure it out, to let's find a way to make these people work. And when you have people like Chris talking about the idea that when people get to end game, that's where they make money. They have to find some way to get people to end game.
It's that assumed knowledge thing is something I come up against quite often. I try real hard to, like, when you're making like guides for new players and whatnot, to try and like figure out how deep you have to go. But for any build on the game, the video could be 6 hours long.
That's true.
Right? So like, if you assumed nothing and you went through with a team and really worked on assuming nothing, any video could be 6 hours long. So you're like figuring out where it's an amount of assumed knowledge that is okay. Like some things that are really basic, you just don't think about because they're not really basic. They're just really basic to us because we've all played.
Flask setups. Setup. And pantheons for your build. Like every time you do like a build, what pantheons to pick? Well, pantheons are not really build specific. You usually pick them situationally, right? I mean, they're somewhat build dependent, but they're also dependent on the context of what you're trying to do, because you can swap them for free. So like a lot of times when you make a build and you won't tell people which pantheons to pick because you assume that as a grown-up PoE player, you can make that decision for yourself. But obviously, if you go into a build guide as a new player who hasn't played the game and you're like, well, but that is a pantheon system. What am I supposed to do with that in the context of this build? Yeah. The question is completely legit, but you can't go and explain that every single video.
They come up to pantheons and go, oh, pantheons, what are these? And then they open the guide again looking for because they don't even know what a pantheon is.
Yeah, right. Don't hit F1. It might not help you out that much.
Right.
Or whatever.
Well, even something basic like the term attack. For people that are not familiar with this game, attack just means I'm attacking the enemy. It's not a specific term. It's, okay, here's my fireball. I'm attacking the enemy. Right? So, I'm increasing my attack damage. Oh, look at that. Champion, look at all that attack damage. That's amazing.
Yeah, my fireball is going to one-shot everything now.
There's nothing that says accuracy is specific. It has nothing to do with spells. Like there's a lot of assumed stuff that's in there. And I think all it needs is an updated database. Like as you encounter information, it just uploads a small, and it does not have to be wordy at all. Like that's what the wiki's for, to get the exact detail if you care about that information, but you do need the basics in the game. I really hope they nail it. Like I'm such a big, passionate fan. Like I love a minimalist tutorial system, but I hate it when basic information is not in the game itself. So I really hope they nail that for PoE 2.
Okay, I like an extensive tutorial system, but I hate it when the game takes you by the hand forcefully.
Treat you like an idiot.
I'm all for easing new players into the game as much as possible, because the more explaining the game does, the less I have to do as a content creator, right? Yeah.
Amen to that.
Less time I spend talking about basics, and I can talk about the things that are really interesting on stream, right? But God, I cannot tell you how much I've raged in the past when I tried to do race practice on stream, like try to improve my acts time. And every character you make, you have to tell the game that you don't want tutorials. And every skill you equip and you put on your character, you have to tell the game that you want to use it without moving to the position. and then you change the gem, right? The game pretends that those things are not bound to the gem, just like the microtransaction system. But then you change the gem by flipping it when it hits level 20. And all of a sudden, your Herald of Purity MTX is not on your Herald anymore, even though it's the same gem, but it changed its internal ID because you flipped it with the render, and then your MTX is not on the thing anymore, and you don't have attack without moving anymore. And
Yeah.
that stuff triggers me to no end. Like all these repetitive little things that as an experienced player, I know how I want to do it, but I have to tell the game on every junction again. Right.
We were laughing in the episode that came out like whatever an hour ago that there was a patch
yeah, it
note that
is.
just came out recently where they talked about the fact that they had removed the idea of the distances away and instead changed it to meters. And both of us were like, that's not actually helpful.
That doesn't
Unless
do
there's a
anything.
legend
Right.
on the screen that shows you like this distance equals a meter.
Right?
4 meters means nothing to me. What am I supposed to take a few steps? Should I know what length my arm is? Like, I don't know what that is supposed
Yeah,
to be.
dude.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
That
so
one was
weird for
funny.
me to see that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome if there was a toggleable option. You know how you can hit, is it F1 on PC where you can see, your frame rate and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Yep.
top right.
It's an eyesore, but I like that stuff. I would play with it on all the time if I played on. But whenever I do play on PC, I have it on, even though it's not nice looking. I like
seeing
having
a
that
circle,
information.
a range circle around
Yes.
your character.
Yes,
awesome.
even if I had 6 circles because I had nearby for my
nearby is
flesh and
ridiculous.
stone, and then I had
Mhm.
this for that, and I had my pride, other circle. Like it would be great. I don't care if it's an eyesore. I want to know what it is.
So other games do that. Interestingly, like I'm about to embarrass myself. The only game I ever play, usually off stream, is League of Legends.
All
And
right.
all of those characters have like different attack ranges, but there's a hotkey you can press,
To see it.
and then you can see the range of your auto attack and also the range of whatever spell you're on.
Yeah, if you
or-
hover over an ability, then it shows you the range, right?
Oh, why
Yeah.
don't they do that? I don't get it.
and that's that. I don't know how hard shit
Even
like
if
that
you
is to
could use it in
implement, but
your hideout. Like if you could just toggle it on just in your hideout to get a rough
Sure.
idea of like what to expect when you were in a map. Like
Yeah.
honestly,
Right
if
next to
you
your
put it on
test
inside the
dummy.
map, it's a waste of
right next to your
anyway.
test dummy.
Yeah, the test dummy. We
Okay.
talked about that forever, but it just something to see something visual would be awesome to know like what melee.
I may have a hack for you here, and that's
Yeah?
something I'm gonna post in chat.
If it's a
you use-
POB thing, I've seen
No,
it in
no, it's like
POB,
a-
but it's not helpful.
No, it's actually there is on the wiki.
Like
If
an
you
overlay?
go to the distance, yeah, there is like a 1080p image that you can. Give me a second. I'm gonna.
I love that it's a third party thing. That's like their favorite thing.
Don't get
Eh,
me started.
We
Oh,
won't deal with it.
I can-
Somebody,
Like,
I can do.
What if?
I can do one better.
yeah.
Okay.
I can do one better. I think it's called Flesh and Stone. It's a 25% aura, and it has a visual representation of the size. And you can now read the size on that gem and be like, oh, this is a 20 meters. So my 10 meter thing goes half this distance.
It does.
Wait,
It has
the
that.
best
Flesh and
you can
Stone
do.
has the
circle.
visual on the outside. Oh.
Yeah, it's the best you can do in game. I know it's not great.
It's something at least.
Like that's not a solution, but it's better than any other option, which is no other option. That's it. That's
See,
all
Kat,
I've
what
got.
you're showing on your screen right now, I don't know if everybody else is seeing this too. Let me see that
Yep.
in the hideout. Let me chill there and mouse over one of my skills and let it fill the range. Just to give me a rough idea. I don't need it in the map, but I like nearby and 4 meters means fuck all. They don't mean anything to me. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know what that means. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's another hack or trick that doesn't require you to use this overlay graphic because obviously you need to be running POB or something like that. But there was the Enlightened hideout, right? You remember Elrion's hideout?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You remember the Elrion's hideout has like square tiles on its floor?
No.
I don't
Wait,
know.
I'll
show
bring up
me
a
a picture?
screenshot. Do I have a screenshot? Yeah, here. There you go. You have these tiles on the ground, these square tiles. Each of those tiles has a side length of exactly 12 units.
Which is how many meters?
I wrote
3.7.
down-
It's some stupid number.
12
appreciate
units are 1.2 meters.
Oh,
yeah.
Hold on. What was that screen you just had up?
Did they? Let's change it on the wiki.
Wait, it's on the distance on the wiki.
You just had a
Yeah.
thing that showed like something and it showed meters on it. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
a real thing?
It's the distance article on the wiki. Right, I'm bringing it up again. Right. So here, collation of known distances. right? And then you have the 12 units is 1.2 meters, and that's the tiles and the
Obviously.
enlightened hideout.
It's
Oh
like,
wait, you're not seeing it anymore.
No, we're
I've
not.
seen it, but I love the idea that it's like 1.7 is equal to 4
Yeah.
point. Like, okay, sure,
we're
got it.
converting
Yeah, that makes
imperial to metric in the game without visuals.
Okay,
Oh
so
no,
it's
there
just
it is. It's
at
just
a
10. Okay, that makes sense.
at a decimal place.
Yeah, it's all 10 centimeters.
That is really funny.
I was thinking though that the addition of the metric system to the game is probably something they're adding to the game just as a base, and then that's something Path of Exile.
I'm
2
not in
related.
favor of it. Further division of the player base. Well, Jake,
Oh yeah,
talking.
now you got meters versus feet. That's right.
I think though that this is going to be something Path of Exile 2 related. You know how they're talking about gravity impacting projectiles. There's going to be a way to measure skills like Sunder. You know what I mean? So that it goes a certain distance. But I think Path of Exile 2 will have something more to do with letting the user know about distance. I don't see this edition mattering at all if they weren't going to do something about it in the sequel. That's my hope.
That would make sense, to be honest.
I think they just want it. They want it to be more accessible to new people, right? Like units doesn't say anything. Meters at least says something. And I think like 0.6 meters as the base range of unarmed melee attacks seems somewhat reasonable. I mean, if I get into a bar fight, I would assume I can hit someone who's 0.6 meters away with my unarmed melee attack.
I still think you need a legend. I don't know what that means. I don't know what a meter is equal to. Does my guy have super long arms? Does he have short arms? Is like a meter? I don't know what.
Yeah,
which I get it. It's at least
I'm
something.
just saying it's something that you can visualize easier
Sure.
than units,
So,
right?
yes,
Units
I
is
agree.
just
Sure.
an
I
empty,
do agree.
like a blank slate, and
Yep.
meters is like something you can somewhat infer. It's somewhere between this and this. Like that's reasonable.
They
As
do
long as you're
have-
not American, right? Because
they do have
feet.
quite a history though of half doing things and then finishing the other half later. I just think this is one of those half doing things. I think we're going to get more stuff to make the change to meters make any sense at all. Because I agree, right now, meters doesn't mean anything.
I don't know
I
what
know
that
how
means.
far a meter is in my room.
Yes.
I don't know
I
how
can
far a
reach my
meter
arm
is.
out. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how far a meter is in the game, and nobody does.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
but I think I think we've just gotten, half the thing. Like
Yeah.
something will come that helps with that a lot.
I am excited to see what comes as they progress closer to PoE 2. I think it's going to be fun.
My most immediate excitement is the next league because I hope. I don't know what you have. You been talking to the GGG people that you talked to about next league at all? I have not extracted a lot of information, but Chris said in the Q&A that we did at the park, he said something along the lines of, after the timeline has been extended for PoE 2 and we're only doing the beta next year and only the release around Christmas, then we've said that we're not doing any endgame expansions for PoE 1, but that was assuming that we'd be on the timeline where PoE 2 comes out sooner. But now that it's coming out later, we're sort of due for an endgame expansion, he said. So I have high hopes that
I would imagine they must come out with an endgame expansion because if I think it's June 2024 is the expectation of the beta.
Jonathan definitely between now and PoE 2.
Because Jonathan said 3 months is like a hopeful expectation for the PoE 2 beta, which would put you to what's that, September? I cannot imagine they release PoE 2 in September. There's just it'd be crazy not to push that to like November, December and just make a piss load of money as a release right around that Christmas time. So I mean, I think realistically we have to see something in game related. I haven't heard anything. We haven't asked anybody with regards to that. But I would be shocked if this version of the end game that we have right now lasts until next year. Personally.
Wonder what it would be though. Like I wonder how trapped by lore they are. Because everything obviously has to make sense from a lore perspective, and they've expanded quite substantially lore-wise. Like we're into how many godlike figures now? And like where do you go from here without changing the origin story of Path of Exile 2, which is what, 20 or 30 years later? Like you can't
20, I believe.
change whatever that circumstance is that's ended in Path of Exile 1 to create the down back to earth environment of Path of Exile 2, and of course all the evil now that's spread throughout the land. There still has to be that lore connection. And of course we haven't seen that lore connection yet because the game doesn't end like this now. So there was bound to be something to tie the two together, whether it's an introduction into Path of Exile 2, like a sweet cutscene that they don't do except for the awesome Kitabo one, right? 5 seconds of this, but
Act 5
with the
or whatever. That's the
Right.
only cutscene, right? When
That
you
was
kill
so good
innocents?
when
And
everyone
innocents.
forced Project PT to come back to play that. Like when after he quit the game already a long time ago, 3.0 comes out, everyone is like, PT, you gotta try it. We want to hear your opinions on it. And he gets to the cutscene, and then the cutscene is gone, and the entire chat told him, you skipped it. You skipped
You
it.
accidentally
And made him
click and you're
watch
just
it again.
fucked. It's so annoying.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome feature
Brutal.
though that you can watch it again. Not like anything happens, but I like it when games do that. But anyway,
need
like
more
there's got to be
cutscenes.
something. So maybe this league, whatever the expansion would be, if there is going to be an end game expansion, which is the assumption that we're talking about, it's got to be tied in lore wise.
We've not seen anything though PoE2 end game related at all. So
No,
they could
but
literally do whatever they wanted.
I feel with so many layers of reality, with like memories and visions and speculations and stuff like that, I feel like there's almost an infinite way to implement things lore-wise. Like if you wanted something to happen, then you could make it make sense in the lore. Like worst case scenario, it's like an illusion conjured up by Maven who wants to see you in a
Sure.
specific fight or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the
I'm-
possibilities lore-wise are endless.
I'm only glad that I don't have to come up with any of that shit.
right.
Agreed.
I couldn't. I don't have that sort of imagination. I,
No.
Same. Like right now, what do you do to change endgame to make it better? It's as seamless as it's been in so long. Like I'm still amazed that the Atlas passive tree isn't in quadrants, or it's not in like 8 different sections, and it's so easy to choose between Maven or one of the other 2. What do you call them? Eldrix entities, whatever they are. I think my only thing would be I'd like to be able to get that Eldritch currency and the opportunity for awakened gems without needing to choose one or the other. I think that would be like the
Greedy.
only kind of
Just greedy.
come on. I don't get any. I have one awakened gem in my life, and I could use it, which was awesome, on my Righteous Fire build, which I barely play, but I can use it. But I mean, it'd be nice to, that'd be my like only thing. If you could somehow like have the opportunity to get both without having to choose. Still, though, an investment in one would still provide you with a decent reward in that regards. But I can't think of anything else.
if I was working on endgame stuff, the best thing I could come up with is I want 4 more tiers of maps, because like the way I play, I can make a character so strong within 2 days of league start that I can complete all of the current content within 2 days.
What would be the
So I want
benefit of
more.
that additional 4 tiers? Just like a higher base level of item, or what?
I just want it to get way more difficult.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about the benefit.
bragging
I just want
rights.
it to be way more difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, you
That's-
can't really do
But that's
rewards.
such an uninspired solution. Like, I want it because I want more difficult things.
What's more difficult though? Just like they're spongier, they just have more HP, or like
Well,
what?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Mhm. I am
But
curious.
it's a good
like,
idea.
What
I
what
just-
makes it harder as they get up higher? They just have
We-
more HP, or
Well, so 2 years ago, I had content that I could do, mapping content, not bossing content. I had mapping content that I could do that was significantly harder than anything that is even possible right now.
Hmm.
The game at the real top end of mapping, 60 to 70% of the difficulty of the game went away and never got replaced.
what was
So
that
I
change?
went-
What was that?
So it got taken away in little chunks. But basically, way back ages ago, you were able to do old beyond, but double or triple beyond
Oh,
in
yes, yeah.
100% delirious fractured mapping scenarios.
Yep.
And those maps were easily 6 times as hard as the current endgame 100% delirious map that we
Right.
can currently make.
Mm-hmm.
Those were significantly harder maps.
Yep.
And that's fine. And I understand why they removed that stuff. It wasn't about the difficulty of the content. It was about the level of reward I was able to pump out of that content was far out of skewed with whatever
currency related though, or
Yeah.
drop related. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The amount of raw currency I could pull out of that map. We were walking out of those maps with at the time exalts, 25 of them per map.
Right.
You
And
also put like half of that into making the maps, but yeah.
Yeah, but like I get it. I get why that went away, right? Like I'm not trying to say give me my fractured mapping back, but I am saying that the difficulty of mapping content we had then was significantly harder than what we have now. And so what I want out of an end game expansion is for them to give me some scalable difficulty back up to the level I had before, so that I have a reason to invest more than realistically 2 days from a brand new league. My league start can do all content in the game.
It's a tough balance.
I know that doesn't happen for everyone. I know that's definitely a 1% problem.
Sure.
It's also just picking strong builds. You just play Fire Conversion, Reap Juggernaut, and you can play the game for a week.
too, right?
Until you reach
then the solution is make a worse build, right? And like that, I feel like that. I had content that was that hard a few years ago.
It's gone.
And it got taken away, which is fine. The reasons they took it away are all good. I'm on board. But it's been a long time now, and they never replaced that. They never put that top end difficulty back in. They never did that. And I would like a way for that to come back. That's all.
I would like to see an increase in the difficulty, but the rewards not just solely tied to divines or currency or whatever it is. I would love to see where they introduce something, and we talked about this quite a few times. I want to see a tier level or something that's related to the tier of the mods that can roll on an item. So if I'm doing, let's say in your case, they add 4 more tiers. So I've got a tier 20 or a tier 19 map. The tier of the drop cannot be lower than a tier 5 or a tier 4 roll. So if a helmet drops, I'm not going to get a shitty helmet that rolls with a tier 13 or a tier 10 life roll. There's a minimum, right? Does that make sense? Like there's a minimum to the tier that can roll on the item based on the map that I'm doing.
Item mod. Right.
So basically, if we combine like your suggestion and Balor's suggestion, instead of having maps, like you go up to tier 16 and up to tier 16 maps, you unlock new higher tiers of mods that items could roll. But instead of adding new tiers on top, you would be eliminating the bottom tiers, the higher rewards, so that you're more likely to get.
I just feel like it would be very exciting. I know that PoE is not in this state right now, but I would love to get to a point where the dropped items are exciting. And if you had dropped items that had a minimum tier that could drop, you have, I mean, granted, there's still a billion tiers that could, or mods that can roll, but having a minimum tier that those modifiers could roll increases the chance that something's just not straight up.
I was just gonna say that you're not gonna accomplish what you want to accomplish, which is drops being more meaningful by doing that. But I was thinking that you were suggesting that as like for higher item levels, you're excluding lower tier rolls. But if you only do that for drop, not for crafting, so like
only
item
drops.
level 90 or 91 base would work essentially the same as an item level 84 base, with the exception for when it rolls for the drop. And then it can't roll lower tiers. That
lower
would be
than
a
a
very
tier.
kind of cool idea to incentivize farming higher content and looking at items there.
Not just solely like farming for the divines or the exalts or whatever it is, but now you're like, oh, that weapon dropped, and I know that because of the item level that it's in and the tier that I've been doing, that it can't have a modifier lower than X tier. I don't know.
Well, I think I totally agree. I think it's absolute garbage that you're in a T16, you have an item level 86, and it drops a +3 maximum life. Are you like I'm at T16 and I'm getting a +3 life mod on my gear that's dropping? Like that, to me, that's crazy.
Because there has
it doesn't matter what else is on it. It's getting
there has to be bad outcomes in the item generation and then the mod adding process, right?
Like decrease the drops,
but
decrease the drops.
There are so many mods in this game that you don't have to have horrendous tier values to make an item crappy. There are so many mods for boots, so many mods for one-handed weapons, so many mods for staffs. There's so many that you have, and it would increase the amount of mediocre gear people have
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if you when you change the weight values, when you make that tier 1 weight value much less and you have that tier 5 much higher, like obviously you would change the ratio with how often those still show up. You would increase the amount of mediocre items you have, which still increases the value of what's being dropped on the ground. But it would actually make you excited about what's on the ground. I kind of like, I mean, you'd have to change a lot, but I like what Justin's saying.
Not that I think that's a bad idea, like, but it's also got a lot of knock-on effects and a lot of problems that it could cause.
Sure.
Which
Tell
is
me.
one of the reasons why I'm really happy we don't have to come up with solutions, just problems.
What's a
I'm
problem?
not-
Tell me one. Tell me one.
I mean, if Chris or
economy
Jonathan were
based?
here, they instantly come up with problems with that. Because
So
whenever
some of those problems are economy based, and some of them that come to mind immediately are economy based, and some that come up immediately are what's the word? Hang on, I gotta work out the word. Perception based.
Yeah, perceptional.
And I think they're going to be the bigger problems, because if you tell me, even if it's only 20% overall better gear drops in my tier 19 map, but in order to put in tier 19 maps, you have to scale that difficulty so that it's like significantly harder to like solve the problem of endgame content being too easy for some people. You've now created a perception. It doesn't even have to be reality, but a perception of, if your build can't do tier 19, you're wasting all of the time that it exists, and your build is trash, and you as a player should go home. Right? You've created this like perception of everything fails if you can't do this highest end stuff, because nothing on the ground will be worth it.
Exactly the situation that we predicted and that we have now with the Uber Pinnacle content in the game, which was originally added with the premise. I think Chris or someone said it on a podcast. We just want to give the best players with the best builds something to pit their builds against, and we're not going to try and put additional rewards behind these bosses. And then 3 or 2 patches later, we got all the race prices being added to the Uber bosses. And now if you have incandescent invitations and your character is not able to do the Uber version of the Exarch, you sell them, because you can't get the best returns from the same invitation, because the same invitation opens both the regular version of the fight as well as the Uber version of the fight, with the Uber version being way more rewarding.
Is that bad? Like I mean,
it kills the normal non-Uber bossing for the most part.
I don't think those two things are related, because one of them is what we were talking about just a minute ago, perception based. That's not a perception based problem.
that's
also
just straight
perception based. It is also perception based. It is not exclusively perception based, and your perception is not going to remedy the fact that you make a loss, but you could still run a regular boss and get a good item that sells for more than what you would have gotten for the invitation. That is still a realistic possibility. A perfectly rolled Dawnbreaker is still worth upwards of 7 divines. Right?
I mean, right. The same as running through any Alkengo map could drop you a Mage Blood on the floor, but it's not going to.
Yeah.
Like, the expected return is lower because of that.
I think it's fair to be, I mean, this is coming from a way super casual player. I'm fine with the fact that people that play the game way more than I do are way more, they're just more invested into their character. They're going to do higher tier content and potentially have the potential. I mean, currently in the game, it's not even so much to get better gear than me. They're just going to get more currency. They're going to get more stuff in the end than I will, which is going to lead to more currency, which is going to lead to better stuff. And so from in my brain, I go, if somebody, at the time I'd actually never thought about the idea of there being something higher than a tier 16. But my feeling was like, even as you get up and towards the tier 16, that the chances of rolling these lower tiers decreases or something. Again, that was my thought without the idea of this going up 4 more tiers. It was just capping at the current tier 16. I was fine with that. Like, if you play 8 hours a day and you're a streamer, or not even a streamer, there's lots of people that play the game hours and hours a day and they just pour their time into it. I think that's fair. If somebody can pour that time into it, they should have better shit than I should. They just straight up should. If you spend more time in the game than I do, there's no reason I should have the same amount of stuff that you do. Period. And so perception aside, I get that sometimes it might look bad, but I think that that's a fair thing. If you commit the time and your build can do it and you can slowly progress your gear, you deserve to get better stuff than I do. And if I want that stuff, let me go sit and trade and try and get it. But I feel like what Tyler said, one of the things I struggle with is the idea that if I'm doing a tier 60 map, the idea of I swear I just said
idea.
So cool.
East Coast.
Oh no, like
Loser.
Canadian and New Zealand there. If the idea of getting something that is like a tier 10 or 11 or 12 life roll on something just kills the item. It is absolutely useless at that point.
Yep.
Almost to the point where I cannot fix it. Even if everything else is great, my risk to try and fix that item is so great that it is not worth me trying to do it. And so I think it would just be fun to have this idea that as I'm progressing through the higher tiers of maps, that the tiers of the roles adjust, maybe not specifically, but just somewhat to the point where there is a benefit to me running the tier 16 and tier 15, not just the fact that I'm going to get item level 86 or plus items, but also that the modifiers that roll on those items may be slightly modified based on the fact that I'm spending time in higher tier content.
It's a thought worth pursuing. I like it. They'd have to explore like all the implications of that, which I'm not capable of. But
no, that's their job, and it won't happen. I know that.
Again, my dream always is that items on the floor matter, which I know sounds weird coming from like CEO of not picking stuff up. But
your
I mean, that's the reason why you're not picking stuff up, because you feel it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the play now is to not pick stuff up. But I don't want it to be the play.
Yes.
I want to be excited to put items back on my filter.
100%.
I'm just not, but I want to be.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
I was going to ask you two at the beginning, and so this ties into what you were talking about now, picking up things, trade. You went from hardcore to softcore. You obviously dabble in both, but you were talking about selling. What is it that you like now about softcore? Is it just the fact that you can sell? Is it the fact that you can get what you want without needing to care about what drops on the ground? Or is it just the aspect of being able to use a portal or two and you're not wasting another 20 hours of releveling? Sorry, I relevel in 20 hours. You guys relevel in 3 hours, but still, that's...
It still takes me 6, even with Twink gear. I'm really not...
Yeah, I used to be at a point where I can finish the campaign in 4 or 5 hours with the fastest builds in HC, but like I deviated from that so hard. I'm so casual nowadays.
Cool.
For me, it's literally still just that I'm not wasting my time. And it's not about the game time. If I wasn't a content creator, I would still be in hardcore. It's the content. I got to make a living, and I don't think I've had people get mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it again anyway. I don't think I'm like an entertainment streamer. I don't know. I think I try real hard to be educational. And so a lot of that is just I have to put out more stuff, and I can't put out more stuff if I have to re-level all the time. That's just how
it's more time efficient to reach certain points in the game like that, right? If you're not being set back by every death that you experience, and it also allows you to be a little bit more free with your chat interaction, with how entertaining you are on stream. You can be more extroverted and put more of your attention into being that streamer rather than into playing the game correctly. And big plus, you don't have to beat yourself up over being an entertaining streamer, because a lot of times when I die in the game, it's because I try to be entertaining for chat. And if I get punished for that, I'm less entertaining for chat. I'll do less interaction. I'll be more introverted. I'll be more paying attention to my game and then only interacting between maps. And that makes me a worse streamer. And I've never liked this idea of I can either be a good streamer or a good player, but I can't be both. And in softcore, I can be both.
What if in the game, it will never ever happen, but what if there was the ability that once you reached campaign or beat the campaign that you could start the character sort of like D4 did, where you skip the campaign, you start end
skip
game,
the leveling.
some
Not a
sort
fan
of
of
system or
skipping
whatever.
leveling.
But from a hardcore perspective, from a content creator, is there a benefit to that?
You mean like no risk of dying, like just
Well,
reach
you
max?
have to get your hardcore character through the campaign, so you do your thing, and then maybe you fuck up and you die. But now your next character is now able to start
at level 68.
I don't know what the thing would be, but similar to D4, is there a benefit from a content creator perspective in PoE?
From a content creator perspective, certainly,
specifically.
because you save time making a new character. So if you were to try and document a new build, sure, you'd save a lot of time. But
is
I
the
don't-
hardcore perspective still the hope that you'll die from the viewer perspective, or is there?
I don't
Yes,
think people hope that
we
you die during
want
the act.
you dead.
Did you say you don't think they do, or that they do hope you'll die?
Oh no, they
Because
definitely
I
It's
feel
not.
like they must
Die.
hope you die.
There's a certain portion of chat who always wants you to die every single time.
it's 100%. What the fuck are you talking about?
No, there's also people who root for you and who want to
No,
see you like
no.
progress the build and like get to a certain point and kill bosses.
Yeah,
I
and
feel
then
like
die.
it's got to be close to 100. That just
Like,
enjoys to watch you die.
My favorite streamer to watch is Zizarin, and I have never once in my entire life wished that he was successful. I want him to die every single second I'm
It's
watching.
the reaction. It's the
I-
what happens after they die. It's so fun.
Like there's maybe been a few times where I hope he didn't die, which is when he's going to be like number 1 in like a hardcore boss race.
Sure.
If he's like,
Yeah, I was
He's
gonna
like
say
right there on
you're
the
rooting
edge.
for people in the gauntlet
if
and
he's
all
like
that. When
right
you
there
watch
on the
Exile
edge of
killing
winning,
Xerath,
maybe
Still
I
don't want them
him
to die a little bit though. I feel like he got to be 50-50.
Yeah, but even then, it's like I would slightly prefer he didn't die because I want him
Sure.
to win.
55-45.
But if he does,
yeah,
I'm still gonna love it. Right? Like it's not.
it's true.
It's
I
not-
agree.
It just isn't like it's death. I want to see the death.
Awesome.
That's-
to encourage you to don't. I think you guys are fantastic at what you do, and don't try and manipulate. Like I'm not trying to be bossy, but don't try and manipulate what you do for the sake of income or the product that you put out to try and match someone else. Like when people show up to see Cat Master when he's broadcasting or Baylor Mage, like they know who you are. They know what they're going to get. They know the type of player you are, the type of person you are. There's going to be some new people, and not everybody suits everybody, right? Just like our podcast, not everybody that wants a Path of Exile podcast likes yours or likes ours. And it's the same thing. But as you keep doing what you like to do, you'll get that consistency over time. I mean, sometimes you can't afford to try the risk or anything like that, but I think you guys are fantastic at what you do, and I think if you just did what you wanted, you'd be happy. But I also wanted to ask, in regards to trade, do you like how trade is now that you guys are softcore? Being it, I mean,
Swear to
you've been
God,
in
if you're
softcore for a
starting a
long
new
time.
topic, I'm gonna drive over to your house and murder you.
Well, I was just curious what you like.
This
Is
is
trade
the
too
last
easy
topic.
for you? Does it ruin the experience for you? The fact that you can just buy whatever you want?
Nah.
I can't buy whatever I want. I'm so fucking poor, dude.
Nah, I can buy and sell. Buying and selling is probably the main thing that I enjoy at every league start. It's I running the market is like a specialty thing. Like it's hard to explain. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the market. I've said this before, and it upsets almost everyone. I think Path of Exile has the single best trading system of any online game I've ever played.
It does have its downsides, but yeah, you can't eliminate those downsides without eliminating the upsides.
That don't worry. That I saw your face.
I'm trying to I'm just rolling it through my head.
Yep,
Just trying to understand
don't
what
worry,
you
it
just
upsets
said.
people.
It's the best?
The
You
best.
know what?
He thinks really
That's-
slow after
I
a
don't
few
I don't
drinks.
think I actually super disagree with you. I like the fact that it is not an immediate thing. And I also played, I don't know if when you guys played during Bloodlines, I don't remember if it was still the same state. When I played, there was no in-game trading thing. You created a forum post. You had a forum post for your shop. That's how
Yeah.
trade worked.
Yeah,
There was
it's
there was
around that
nothing in
time when
game.
we started playing. Is that people started using tools that would actually create the forum post for you, like
Yeah.
acquisition, right? But it
We
was
had-
still
yep.
forum based.
So
it doesn't mean I wouldn't make any changes or that it's perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But I haven't seen a better one. So
do you like the fact that there's the potential of the person not being available for you to buy it, or like what is it about the trade system that you think is so great? I do like it much better than this idea of like, I see an item, I buy it, I've got it right away.
yeah, so auction houses are literally the worst.
Yes, I agree.
Any version of an auction house very quickly ruins every trade economy in every game that's ever existed.
Unless
It's
you
the
included
worst
it for
solution.
real money, then fine. But yes, I agree. Go ahead.
PoEs trade the search functions to start with, like being able to look for very,
Really
very,
good.
very specific things.
Yep, I agree.
There isn't anything even remotely close to that good in any other video game in existence.
Is that possibly though because most other games don't have the complexity of items that
Maybe.
PoE
Yeah, I
has?
was gonna say this is in
Maybe,
part
I
agree with
to
you.
the
I do
way the
agree.
item system works.
Oh, that is a fair point.
But I do agree. I
Um,
think their ability to build up that trade thing is amazing.
Yeah. I like that you can't trade with people that are offline.
Mhm.
I think that's good. There are bits that I don't like, which is like I don't like that I have to leave lab or leave my map or whatever to accept the trade, but I still do think I should have to accept the trade.
Mhm.
I would like it if that could happen without my having to go to my hideout and then trade someone, but I would still like to have to be at my computer online and actively accepting it.
Have you had
Like, I
anybody
think-
like trying to trade you while you're in Toda and they won't come to your halls? Makes
Yeah.
me angry. Angry. I
Yeah.
just want to like punch them in the face. Like just hit the button. Just come here.
Like there are things about it that I would change, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't know, just the limitations that are on it, I think are good. I think people meme the intentional friction thing far too often, but I think an amount of friction and most of the friction we have is actually good. Most of the things that I have that are problems are just the physical interaction in game. The fact that I have to invite someone to my hideout and then go and physically trade them, I don't like that. But I still want to have to make the decision and be present at the computer to do it. And so I think it's like 80% of the way there to a perfect system, but not. I think most of the problems that exist are not. Most of the problems that exist are not necessarily their fault, but are more our fault.
Are just inherent problems of trade, I guess, also to some degree. Like a lot of the problems that exist, you can't remove without introducing bigger problems. They're like the smallest,
like 100%.
possible problem.
I'm glad that Chris is in charge because there will never be an auction house, but there should never be an auction house. I'm very, very strongly of the opinion that auction houses are the worst trade system that can possibly exist in any game. They're absolutely trash.
Unless they're real money, right? Obviously.
I made so much money out of the
Diablo
3 real lot money
Me
auction
too.
house.
It was awesome.
As much as putting one of those in PoE would ruin the game.
Oh, it's awesome.
I would also make a lot of money. So it's
100%.
hard. It would be hard to argue against that.
Uh-huh.
Just because I would make a lot of money.
It always shocked me how much money people were willing to pay for some of the uniques. Always with Diablo 3.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys hear that interview that Jonathan did? I think it was at Gamescom, where there was a question posed, and Jonathan said that the goal is eventually to have cross-platform play. So Xbox, Sony, and PC would all be on the same realm.
That'd be cool.
I've been yes, but I've been thinking their trades are very different. How console trade works versus PC trade, and I doubt, I wouldn't know any better. This is just an assumption based on how they currently have and designed console trade, that they would require a website system for console trade going forward, especially with something as massive as Path of Exile 2. So since that conversation that I heard through the interview, I've been thinking about what trade would be like between both platforms. And trade currently it's really cool on console, but it also really sucks. But it is quite neat. You basically find an item. It doesn't matter who it is. You find the item. It'll likely have a listed price. You offer whatever you want. Obviously, you probably list the listed price, but you can offer whatever you want. And then whenever the person wants at any time, they can just either approve it or not approve, and then the switch automatically happens. So it's neat. You can choose to filter between online and offline people, and so there is that aspect where you can wait for somebody to come back online, but you can also just the person's there, and then maybe they'll see the message, maybe they won't. But it is nice that you don't actually have to have that immediate interaction with somebody. So they can maybe you just started a map. They're like, oh yeah, I want to buy those boots. You finish your thing, you come back, it's like, oh sweet, I got a trade offer, let's see, oh yeah, that's the price I wanted, okay sweet, and then the transaction just happens immediately. I think it would be fun, nice to have something like that in PC land, but you were saying the complete opposite.
Well, asynchronous trade I'm against, but
Cross instance you're in favor of.
Yeah, cross instance I'm in favor of. I like cross instance. I don't want to have to go and trade you in person, but
I wouldn't mind asynchronous trade if it's heavily regulated and limited, right? It would introduce problems in the way that I am suggesting right now. If I say, one asynchronous trade per account per day, because then people would just make multiple accounts to do as many as they want, right? Like there'd have to be some sort of system in place that makes sense for that limitation, and that would not allow that limitation to be bypassed. But if it's heavily restricted and regulated, I'm not completely against asynchronous trade.
Cool.
But we're all not experts on the trade topic, and I feel like we've talked for a long time about the trade, and we're slowly but surely starting to run in circles.
I feel like we could sit here for another 4 hours talking about more on and off topic stuff.
Agreed.
But we will reach the limit for our hosting services soon.
Well, no, that's not the problem anymore. And since we changed the stuff, we don't have any limits. But I also would like to, especially with first-time guests, I'd like to end things on an amicable note so that they come back in the future at some point. And like, you killed my night. I'm never coming back.
I'm impressed. I gotta say, we made 3.5 hours. That's
honestly, I didn't expect it to go like this.
I
I thought we'd fill 2
awesome.
hours and we'd be
so
happy,
fun.
but to me, the first 3 hours didn't even feel like 2. I thought we were like 1.5 hours.
Just when we got into filter talk, that just sort of drowned.
That was the best conversation on the planet. Also, we basically just watched one of the Lord of the Rings movies together. So
I actually thought that went great. I loved it. I had a good time.
That was great.
I'm also, I don't know if finished.
of course,
An empty bottle.
All right.
Fantastic.
So for a fun closing round, if Chris called you and said, "Shit, our GGPK is too big. We need to delete something from the game to save some space," what is one thing that you would suggest to be deleted from the game? I mean, a year or two ago, I would have said Harvest, but I'm fine with where Harvest is right now. It can stay.
It's lab
for me.
Scion.
Honestly, I expected you to say this.
Get that shit out of here. Fuck the middle of the board.
Master missions.
Master
I think,
missions?
yeah,
like in their current form.
Yeah, I think the time specific nature of Alva is dumb. I like what you get to eventually, but it's such a complete opposite gameplay of something time based to then a mapping experience at the end that isn't time based, but then you're having to check your map every 3 seconds to make sure you're in the right room. I don't like that. The bestiary, it's fine. The crafting options are cool, but it has the arch nemesis mods. Like they're not arch nemesis mods.
Missions all across the board.
All of them. All of
that's
them, yeah.
too much, bud.
Well,
Holy
because no,
shit.
they even bet the bestiary fights are done
June?
because you have the arch
Awesome,
nemesis
it's a whole
mods that are.
crafting.
No, shut your face! You had your answer. This is my
Your answer is bad. I'm just saying.
No, it's all that. Like, but I don't like
Pick
the
one.
essence mods or the bestiary mods. They're
an
like all
essence
that
too?
arch nemesis. Okay. Anyway, master missions would be gone. Just take them. They need. I don't think they. Yeah. They can come back in a easier flowing form, I think.
Okay.
Well, imagine fighting a
bestiary,
a beast. Imagine fighting a red beast and knowing what the mods mean. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it's like
It's the same thing
Torment.
with an essence, right?
Awful.
Like that was Arch Nemesis before Arch Nemesis existed, and then they changed Arch Nemesis mods to be something more legible. But then they kept the Torment mods, the Rogue Exile mods, the Essence mods, and then the Bestiary mods, all to be just as vague as they'd always been. So.
Yeah,
I
can
am
get behind
saying
that.
just lab. I just hate lab. I hate it so much.
You know what? I'd take that first. I'd agree with you on that one. If you gave me two things, master missions would be second. Yes,
I mean, labs are hopefully gone
lab
in
and
PoE
traps.
too.
They're
Ish.
replaced by a different thing that you need to do in order to get your ascendancies. That's for sure.
He
And
said
well,
he said ascendancy trial, which made me nervous. Jonathan
trials
said
are
ascendancy
in.
Trial.
Whether they're the same or not,
I don't know what that
he
means.
did reference them as trials
say
during
trial.
the acts.
They did say though that the lab is still in PoE too, right? Just that you're gaining your ascendancy a different way, but the lab will still be a part. Right?
That wasn't
told us
actually
that act for the ascendancy trial would be an act in one of the islands. I don't know what that means specifically, but he did say ascendancy trial.
And I think it was Rishi in ExileCon that said that you're not going to use the lab to ascend.
Yeah.
I think. I'm getting it all mixed up and jumbled
I think
up,
that was the wording they used. It's like the lab will still be there, but you're not going to be using it to ascend. Right.
So we have Scion, we have 2 labs, and what's yours, Kat?
I have a hard time coming up with something that doesn't relate to what we've previously said on the podcast. So for me, what I would like to remove, I believe, and that's not going to save a whole lot space in the GGPK, but if you could just make it so that every skill per default behaves like as if you press the hold in place button, the shift, and then for the skills where you don't want that behavior, you have to declare it independently. That'd be fine. And then make Uber Pinnacle bosses accessible through a different token than the regular Pinnacle bosses, and I'm happy. Just say that they don't have to compete.
That's 2 things. Which one do you pick? You got 1.
Scion.
No, only the use skill without moving is causing me more frustration, so it's got to be that one.
See, we would basically make the perfect game. That's next step, right? We did podcasts, and now we're just on to making our own perfect game. Yeah, no issues
perfect
there.
Podcast, perfect game, and then next we make an operating system. Right. Is that too ambitious? Is it hard to make an operating system? I've never done one.
It's just around the river bend.
All right. Well, we've been going super hard over time, so if this seems like an abrupt end, then just rewind and listen from the start again and ease yourself into the idea that eventually it is going to end. But I could do like another closing round and like soft, but we don't want to hit the 4-hour mark. I appreciate that you guys stayed on for so much longer than we originally intended.
It was so fun.
I hope that everyone who is watching will give it a go to foreverexiled.com and to listen to your guys' podcast on one of the platforms of their choice. Because, Balor has told me he's an avid fan of your podcast. I haven't listened to as many episodes as Balor, but the ones that I have listened to, I've enjoyed a great deal. So,
love you guys. Thank you.
Same.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you for the invite and for hosting. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on such a unprofessional request and unprofessional podcast to share your expertise with us. Right. So we can do a debriefing. That is, if you're still wearing your briefs after the podcast. But I'll play a quick outro. And wait, one thing I wanted to still show here. This is what has been shared with me during the podcast. So that's something. The lawn care meme.
That's amazing. Tyler is way hotter in that meme. Way hotter.
Winning.
Well,
Oh,
anyway, thanks everyone for being there. Listen to the podcast in full on all platforms. Make sure that you're there for the next one. I don't know exactly when the next one is. It is currently scheduled for midnight my time. Midnight my time between Saturday and Sunday. So that would be 10 p.m. GMT on Saturday night. With 10 key and never sync, but I'm gonna look to reschedule it because I have a family gathering on that day. So if I'm able to reschedule it, probably 24 hours before, so on Friday night, 10 p.m. GMT. And if I'm not, then I'm just gonna end my family night early and come to podcast because that's what I live for. And yeah, if you want to support. If you've supported, you're gonna be shown in the outro. And that's it. Have a wonderful one. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye, guys.